Middletown Township Board of Supervisors meeting is called to order. Please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Supervisor Gallardo, could you do roll call?
Yes. Ms. Hannah?
Here.
Mr. Layton? Here. Ms. Kane?
Here.
Mr. Kiziak?
Here.
And I'm here as well as the other department heads.
Tonight we are pleased to introduce Sophia Barone, an 8th grade student at Maple Point Middle School. She is a member of the National Junior Honor Society who participates in the band and choir, as well as the Neshaminy School District's honors band and select choir known as the Point of Harmony. Sophia has performed ensemble roles in Neshaminy Summer Stock productions, including Descendants, SpongeBob the Musical Jr., and Maple Point's Rock of Ages Jr. She is currently portraying the role of Mrs. Mayer in Seussical the Musical Jr. at Maple Point Middle School, a proud member of the Middletown Township community. Please welcome my daughter, Sophia Barone, to sing the national anthem, and please stand.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, that was lovely. Our first agenda item, upcoming meeting events. The next Board of Supervisors meeting will be Monday, February 9th at 7 p.m. Okay. At this time, we will take public comment related to agenda items. Non-agenda items, I'm sorry. State your name and address, please.
Good evening, Lance Seggers, 98 Queen Lily Road. I wanted to make some of these comments during the public comment policy period, but I didn't want to get off topic in that period. Is it turned on? You can hear me? Okay. So some of my observations about the whole budget process, okay? We spoke about the high level of service that people in Middletown Township expect. And in the reasoning as to why we were drastically raising taxes and then just right around turn around and spending it, right? And what I felt in some of that process was contradictory to what we've done on this board in past votes, specifically going back to the trash collection issue that we had. And part of that issue was we went out, we did polls, and if I remember correctly, those polls stated residents responded with about 57 or 58% of people wanting some form of 2-day-a-week pickup. All right, and That would go in the terms of when we speak of high level of service that residents expect, and the residents told you what they wanted, and then the board disagreed. The board said to residents, you don't know what you're talking about. We're gonna do what we want anyway, okay? So then we get into this budget and this tax increase. When I consistently railed against, not necessarily the tax increase, maybe the amount, understand why we need a tax increase, understand we have things that we need to do. But I railed against the tax and spend look of it, okay? And maybe pumping our brakes on a lot of the spending. And again, a lot of your constituents that I was hearing from were mimicking the same things, and we didn't listen, okay? And I know Christian and Ryan didn't have anything to do with those votes, but this is your first meeting, okay? And I hear supervisors talking about things that are important to them, okay, personally. And every time I hear a supervisor, a politician, somebody say, hey, this is important to me, all right? And it could be important to constituents, but oftentimes, maybe that doesn't align with their constituents, okay? So when I'm speaking to the board, especially Christian and Ryan, I want you guys to remember that you're here because of somebody voted you here. You may have personal beliefs, like I believe affordable housing is a crisis, and I think we should do something about it. We may disagree with whether Middletown Township has enough room for more affordable housing, if that makes sense. Those are things that I would say, listen to your constituents. I understand we all have personal things that we would like to get done. That doesn't mean it's here for Middletown Township. And I'll leave it at that until we get to the other parts of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Shapcott. I have a residence at 166 East Highland Avenue, which is like a little off street off of Bellevue on the south side, I guess it would call it, of Route 1. It's a street with 7 houses on there. I've been there since it was called the Fabian Plan back in the 40s and 50s. And recently, someone's purchased the property across the street. They're planning on, I guess, building at least one home, I see. They're taking trees down. My concerns are, I'm not sure how much in depth anyone has really looked into what the water problems have been on that street for decades. I did try reaching out to Mr. Ennis this morning to try to find out some information about it and see if he could assist me. He directed me to the township, I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of it right off, the engineer. So my concern is there's been one drain at the end of the street since 1965 when they put in the bypass of 413 that goes over by the wood school. And it's never been able to handle the water flow that comes down that street. It's kind of the lowest point before the grade was built up for the highway. And what's been happening is, over the years, the basements flood continuously. Even when you're not getting a lot of rain, you're pumping water out of sump pumps all the time. So I'm concerned about, one, how that's going to affect any of the houses. I mean, it's right on the top of where Langhorne Spring water was originated from. And it's nothing but underground streams. I even have a house 2 blocks from there in the manor that has the same issues. So like when we had the hurricane and everybody lost power, the basement filled 6 feet deep. There was no way to control it. So that's one of my concerns. I'm just trying to figure out what provisions is the township taking when there's new property being built or property being built on. They've been in there for about 2 weeks taking trees down. I don't see any silt fence. Every day when they come out of there, the mud's going right up the street. The other thing is the street is only like 13 feet wide. It's always been that way since they developed it. Yet at the end of the street where Bellevue intersects, there's curbs that come around that's 26 feet wide. So I was wondering, is there a plan once the homes, because it looks like all 4 properties on that side of the street are going to be developed eventually. Is there a plan where someone's looking at how that's going to be developed? And are the curbs going to be required for the residents on both sides of the street? Who's going to pay for it? Things like that. So I'm just trying to make sure that there's some insight ahead of time on the water problems that are on that street and the area. It's just kind of trapped. And then on top of that, you're eventually going to have this this interchange and houses taken down, road work being done, is there any thought to that section of that piece of property for controlling the water? So it's just something I wanted to bring to your mind and make sure that you're trying to make sure that we're staying ahead of it before it gets out of control and before it gets too far into the development process and it's too late. For years, I've been a licensed contractor of Middletown Township. I understand the steps that I had to go through, different variances, zoning, and I just want to make sure that all of the steps are being taken. Don't have anything against it being developed. I just want to make sure it's being done properly. So,
Mr. Radcliffe, could you speak to that?
Sure. Really good questions. Thank you very much for coming today and bringing these to our attention. Probably a little bit more nuanced than what our comments here can develop. Our township engineer, Isaac Kessler with Remington and Bernick is here. We can get your contact information and follow up about your situation specifically. We'd be happy to do that. Generally speaking, when there is development within the township, we do have a stormwater management ordinance, which is part of our code reviews. So it's not the case where people can just generally start building on their properties without some sort of a review. The specifics of your situation would be one that we'd have to dive into, and we'd be happy to do that.
okay. Yeah, just hoping to make sure that there's a follow-up soon because I've been trying for a couple weeks.
Absolutely. So Liz Martin is here. If you want to raise your hand, we can. She's standing over your right shoulder. We can get your contact information to make sure that we follow up to
Okay,
get this
thank you
figured out.
very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Yes. My name is Andrew Schifferly. I'm here on behalf of the Pendel Middletown Emergency Squad at 616 East Lincoln Highway. I just wanted to make a quick comment to thank the board for your support of the emergency squad in the budget and through the process last year. I know there was a lot that happened towards the end. Obviously, we're the third pillar of public safety. You have your own police department and your own fire department, which you're very supportive of. We'd like to thank you for taking some of that tax money and allocating it to the emergency ambulance squad. That's a very important role in this township that goes underappreciated, in my opinion. You guys have been great in working with us as a nonprofit to continue to provide that service. Thanks to your direct support, we're able to add another ambulance on the weekends to better serve the region. We are going to buy a bunch of new vehicles next year that we otherwise would not have been able to, so thank you for that. And we are taking steps to pay our staff more equitably. There's been a lot of problems with emergency medical providers and pay. We're paid much, much less than police, fire, and nursing, even though we're kind of similar in ways to all three. So I'd like to thank this board, the old supervisors, the new supervisors, as we confront this problem in the future. So thank you all. And it relates to the agenda. While I'm up here, just in the interest of time, I'd also like to thank Assistant Township Manager Nick Valla and Township Manager Eden Ratliff for their assistance with the emergency squad with the RDA process. They were immensely helpful, along with the township grant staff, in helping us secure that grant funding. So thanks to all of you, and we'll be here as your partners this year and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, and we absolutely appreciate your services. Any other public comments? Okay, we're going to move on to consent agenda items. I take a motion to pass the consent agenda items.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as listed on the agenda.
I'll second that. Ms. Hanna, I'm going to stop you. I would prefer that you actually read all of the consent agenda items just so it can be put into the record.
I'm happy to do it for you, Ms. Hanna. So number one is consideration of authorizing the payment of the January 12, 2025 bill list, and the amount there is $1,102,619.58. Two is approval of the December 15th through 17th meeting of the public meeting of the Board of Supervisors, which was that two-day budget meeting. Number three is consideration of authorizing resolution number 26-1R, along with number 26-6R, accepting grant awards from the Bucks County Redevelopment Authority. For consideration of authorizing resolution number 26-7R, authorizing application to the Bucks County Community Development Block Grant Program. Next is consideration of authorizing the purchase of 5 police vehicles from Fred Beans Ford of Doylestown, PA, and uplifting from SKD Tyron's emergency vehicle upfitting of Croydon, PA, in a combined amount of $326,775. Next is consideration of authorizing financial security release number 1, final, CFT Plaza. And last but not least is consideration of authorizing advertisement of an amendment to the police department ordinance, removing job descriptions from the codification.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Next agenda item is number 7, consideration of preliminary final subdivision and land development approval for a 2-lot subdivision and construction of an additional dwelling at 164 South Walnut Terrace, Langhorne, PA, TMP 22-008-169 S/LD number 25-11, R2 zoning district. Mr. Ennis?
Yes, good evening. You have my policy briefing summary in your packets, and I'll quickly cover that. This application, subdivision and land development application number 2511, as you already stated, is a 2-lot subdivision, so pretty easy and simple matter, really, in the grand scheme of things when it comes to subdivision and land development applications. I do have some representatives here from the application to cover any details they think I may have missed, as well as offer any answers to any of your questions on technical details. What you have right there in front of you is as best as I can from the plans that were submitted, the existing lot. It does contain a house. That lot will be subdivided into 2 lots. If you can just go to the next slide. And there you have it, where you would keep the existing house, and then there would be a new house that has the frontage along Buckthorn Road. It did go in front of the Planning Commission in December. It did receive a recommendation of approval. There was no objections found for the requested waivers. And when it's all said and done, the impacts are really negligible. You're just looking at 1 extra house in that area. It did receive variances in 2025 for the undersized lots specifically. And with that, as you can see, the recommendation is that I do recommend that it is approved, especially based off of the fact that it was in front of the Planning Commission, did receive a recommendation of approval, and really found no issues with the actual application. And the recommended motion, if you concur, would be I make a motion to grant subdivision and land development plan approval for 164 South Walnut Terrace, 2-lot subdivision and construction of an additional dwelling, SLD number 2511, with the following conditions: that the applicant shall comply in full with all requirements of the Middletown Township subdivision and land development ordinance and the Middletown Township zoning ordinance, unless relief was granted by the body having jurisdiction, and any remaining review comments shall be addressed in full. And with that, I here to answer any questions, as well as defer to the applicant.
So the 2 lots, are they non-conforming? Are they smaller than, and they already have a variance for those 2?
That's correct. So I don't have the exact numbers, but it's in a zoning district that requires a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. I believe these are roughly 7,600 square feet each.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a compliant lot, is now 2 lots that are non-compliant, but they did receive necessary variances in 2025.
Yeah. Any concerns with impervious issues going forward if they go to add sheds or decks or porches?
I can't recall the exact percentages right now. I believe they're both under for building coverage and impervious coverage, but I think they're probably pretty close to that. So there's not a whole lot they probably can do. Might be a modest-sized patio, as well as a shed or something like that. But they're pretty small and tight lots, so there's not a whole lot they could do beyond that, where they would maybe have to try to go before the zoning hearing board again, but that relief would be harder to obtain at a later time.
Ms. Kane, they also have proposed stormwater features for both of the lots they're looking to develop. So they're looking to improve the stormwater, and it's sized appropriately for their proposed impervious as well.
Was there an issue with something with the easement? Is that the one?
Yeah, so I might even have to defer to Mike on that one, but I'll get as best as I can to answer that. So there is a utility easement that's going to be running through the lot that contains the existing house, all for the benefit of the new lot for the new house. Eventually, and this is where I'm definitely going to defer to the applicant, in the existing house right now, there is a older gentleman that lives there. So the property owner is allowing him to stay there. However, he moves on. They do have the intent to build a new house where the existing house is. And the Planning Commission has some concerns to make sure that the new house does not interfere with that utility easement as well as a retaining wall, that it would go before the Planning Commission for a review before there would be any kind of permits issued for that new home.
Okay, thank you.
And no concerns came up at the Planning Commission?
No, other than, again, just making sure that the utility easement and that retaining wall were not compromised during construction of a newer home on where the existing house lies.
Thank you. All right, with that, I would take a motion. Oh. Did we do a motion?
Yeah,
I
Ms.
need to
Henney,
do the motion first, and then we'll take a question after? Okay, thank you.
All right, I move to grant subdivision and land development approval for the 164 South Walnut Terrace two-lot subdivision and construction of an additional dwelling S/LD number 25-11 with the following conditions. The applicant shall comply in full with all requirements of the Middletown Township subdivision and land development ordinance and the Middletown Township zoning ordinance unless relief is granted by the body having jurisdiction. And number two, all remaining review comments shall be addressed in full.
We have a motion?
I second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any comments from the board? Any questions from the public?
Joe Fitch, 346 Wyoming Avenue. I don't understand why Middletown Township has a code enforcement book that says building is 10,000 square feet, and then we constantly bend the rules and let people build on properties that are undersized and are going to be under 10,000 square feet. We already have a stormwater problem. I heard Isaac say that they're going to address their issues, but we already have a stormwater problem. You heard Mr. Shapcott mention it. Why do we keep doing this? Why do we keep building on these undersized lots?
I think they're not going to build until the other house is gone, right? Is that the process, right?
Just to be super clear, so the allowance for the applicant to build on this lot underneath the $10,000 limit as described in code is not the jurisdiction of this board, nor is it the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. It was the jurisdiction of the Zoning Hearing Board, and that was addressed in 2025. So this board is not considering whether or not to allow that variance. They're accepting that that variance was approved by the Zoning Hearing Board.
I understand that, but I guess, again, it's a Middletown Township code book. So why are they approving that when it's been on the book for years?
Yeah, it's a great question, and a question that should be asked of the Zoning Hearing Board.
I guess my question is why do we, again, then approve it? You know, again, with all the issues and the problems that we're going to have.
So a reminder is that this board and the Planning Commission have oversight authority of the code and the variances that are approved by a separate body, which is quasi-judicial, that's the Zoning Hearing Board. This board is essentially evaluating the application at the assistance of the director who gave his presentation, as well as the Planning Commission who had their oversight function last week. They're essentially saying, does this application adhere to all of the codes as written, as well as any variances that have been approved, which is where we are tonight.
Right.
So they're not really weighing in, and they're not being asked to weigh in on whether or not they agree with the Zoning Hearing Board's decision. They may all disagree. They're just recognizing that that decision is there, and it's the new code that's being reviewed against.
So is there something that's, I guess, etched in stone that comes down the line that says, okay, we approved it for this size, another square foot above this size is a no-no, or?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, so they're talking about, I guess, from the looks of it, there's going to be two houses on the property, and then once the old guy dies, they're going to tear that house down and build another house. So
I don't think that's what they're saying.
I can address this. Two things. So when we went to the Zoning Hearing Board, and I appreciate the comment that that's a separate governing body, a big part of the conversation was where this property is located with Walnut Terrace and South Buckthorn. When you look at Canterbury, Walnut, Buckthorn, the vast majority of those lots are around 7,500 square feet, which you can see with the orientation of this site. The existing home that's there fronts on South Buckthorn, and then there's this huge elongated rear yard, and that's a condition that basically exists for very few of other properties there. The majority, the extreme majority of other parcels in that area are situated exactly in the manner that we're proposing. So this is exactly in keeping with the surrounding community. What was discussed at the zoning hearing board and what was discussed at the planning commission is that there's an elderly gentleman who is residing in the existing dwelling. I believe he's 89 years old at this point. My client has allowed him to remain at that site for a number of years at an amount that's significantly below market rate because he doesn't want to displace him at this point in his life. Question came up at the planning commission about why we wouldn't just demolish that home now. It's standard 2-lot subdivision. You build 2 houses at the point of approval. And Mr. Alexander's intent is to allow that gentleman to remain in the existing dwelling, presumably for the rest of his life. And then we're going to construct the new house that fronts on Buckthorn. And when that gentleman either moves from this property or passes away, that's when we would build the new home that's in the place of the existing structure. So we're not building 2 new houses in addition to the home that's there. We're replacing the existing house and building 1 new home. And as part of the development process, Mr. Dumack, who designed the plan, wanted to ensure that the stormwater management system accounted for both the new home and the additional home that will be built on the site. Happy to answer any other questions.
Were there any concerns about neighbors at the zoning hearing board?
I don't recall. I think there were 1 or 2 comments. It was not a significant attendance at the zoning hearing board. There was a comment at the planning commission, as Mr. Ennis noted, regarding the utility easement. Just for the record, we agreed, I think it's appropriate maybe to put this on the record here, that the waiver request that Mr. Dumack requested was for a 10-foot utility easement. We agreed to have that modified to 15 feet in terms of width with the utility easement that's proposed on site. But we're very confident that we can develop this appropriately and capture all stormwater and have sufficient utility access for the new home.
Thank you.
So in a sense, over time, there is going to be 2 houses built there. There's one going to be built now, and the other one's going to be torn down and built in its place. So can we put something in place that says, okay, that house is whatever, 25 by 25, that you can't build anything bigger than 25. It's got to be on the same footprint that it is now.
So essentially, there is that in place with the way that the impervious surface and building coverage percentages allow. So they're allowed a certain percentage for impervious coverage and building coverage. They can't go over that, or they would have to go back to the zoning hearing board to do that. So they can, maybe it is 25 by 25, or it could be 26 by 19, but it is set in it's going to be based off of those percentages, the building coverage and impervious surface.
But again, they went for a variance and it was approved to build on a lot that's under 10,000 square foot. So what's to say that, we're not here no more and, oh yeah, you know what, let's, build a high rise there or something like that.
It would have to, it would not pass the permits, and we would send them back to the zoning hearing board if they wanted to try and get a variance for those.
Okay, but there's no way that we can put in there now at this point saying, it's got to be on the same footprint as what it was.
Not at this point. The zoning hearing board would have had to made that a specific condition that it had to be on the same footprint.
Gotcha. And again, I just don't understand how all of this stuff falls under the same roof and, there's 3 different meetings and it comes to our attention after everything's been approved.
The zoning hearing board meetings are.
Oh, I know, I'm going to start going to them, my friend.
They're advertised and post their agenda on the website. All that information is out there. We can make sure that you get it.
Lance Eggers again. So just to clarify, because it's been a piece of contention, I'm not against this because it's single family and I've never really been against single family, but the zoning and the planning commission all the time tell the board no, right? So that we're not passing the buck on zoning boards. Tell the board no, we don't agree with this. And in the past, the board has said, we're going to approve it anyway, right? So why is
Not
it?
quite. Not quite. The zoning hearing board is an independent body that has an oversight function and ability to approve a variance function that the Board of Supervisors does not easily have. So it really is separate. The Planning Commission is a reviewing body that makes recommendations to the board. So I think that part of what you said
Doesn't
is
have to
true.
approve it.
They don't have to approve what the PC says, but they can't necessarily override what the zoning hearing board does.
Can they send people back to the zoning board if they don't agree with it?
No.
Okay.
No, they're quasi-judicial. The appeal rights from the zoning hearing board would go to the Court of Common Pleas.
All right, so the planning commission, when the planning commission tells the board no, and they vote for it anyway,
Yes.
all right?
Yep. You're correct on those
How's
comments.
that any different?
The role of the PC and the role of the zoning hearing board are different.
Okay, but the role of this board is not any different.
It's different from the zoning hearing board.
Right, but their job is to do what's best for Middletown. And again, I'm not against this, but to pass the buck on another board when you guys are the supervisors, you guys are the elected officials. All of those other boards are appointed, correct? None of those boards are elected.
What do you mean by pass the buck? When has anybody on this board ever said that we're passing the buck to anybody else?
No, to blame it on the zoning hearing board, but you guys are the elected
That's
officials.
not, Mr. Sager, that's not fair. We're not blaming the zoning hearing board. We are acknowledging the authority of the zoning hearing board, and we have to follow their decisions. We're not blaming them or passing the buck. They are an independent body that make zoning decisions that we don't have authority to make, and once they make them, we have to follow them.
But you don't have to approve the bill.
No, but that's a different issue than a zoning issue.
So that's what I'm getting at, is that you guys do have options. A lot of times people are, complaining to me that, the board keeps saying that they don't have options. You guys do.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Sager, what I want to jump in about, we don't have to approve the build. If they comply with all of the regulations in the subdivision and land development ordinance, yes, the township does have to approve it. And we can't take into that the fact that they got a zoning variance into consideration. We have to look at that variance as if that is the regulation that they were allowed now 7,500 square feet. So they don't have the right to just say, I don't like this, I want to not approve it, if they've complied with every other section of the ordinances.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Any other comments?
Eric Bruno, 79 Sweetgum. Just a quick factual error that I heard was that, I apologize, your name? Mike. The representative said that there was most of the other properties in the area are of this size. I mean, I just looked up on there. This property is a third of an acre now. There's a 0.47 acre to the right of it. There's a 0.3 acre to the left, same size. Across the street, there's 0.83. So I'm not really tracking that factual error on there as true. And I mean, and then for the, I would do this for every new plan development. There's quite a few. It's small, I get it, but there's a few trees where the new house is to be planned, and we had multiple discussions over the past few years about making sure that we maintain tree coverage on new developments. And I know this is small, but that needs to be factored in, because if we want to stay consistent and on our policy and what we strive to have in Middletown.
Is there a waiver for trees, Mr. Kessler?
Just reviewing their list of waivers again. And Mike, if you have those waivers,
Yeah, I'm looking
just
up
to
now.
touch on. Most of them are basic as far as the utility easements are concerned.
Yeah, it's utility easements. Don't see it. Yeah. Existing features, preliminary final, plan contours, widening, grading, streetlights. There's nothing related to street trees. And I won't get into the specifics, but if you look at the surrounding area, there's many, many, many homes with the same orientation we're proposing.
I mean, I could show. I mean,
We
I
have
see
an
them.
aerial
I see
exhibit.
them. I see the aerial. It's
Yeah,
just-
no waivers requesting any relief from any tree requirements from the land development ordinances.
So the plan, as far as trees is concerned, complies with the land development ordinance?
Correct.
All right. If you say so.
And I will point out, and the solicitor kind of mentioned it as well, with the zoning relief that was granted through that process, that is a given at this point. That doesn't relieve them from having to meet the ordinance requirements from the subdivision and land development ordinances for how they have to manage the site, how they have to control the site when they do build on it. So all those ordinance requirements that would be any kind of waiving that they would request, that is obviously in the control of this board, but that's part of their proposed land development that they have on the plan. Once they have that zoning relief, they're still having to meet all those requirements to actually control and manage the site and not have it, miss any of those requirements just because it's a smaller site.
So it is a part of the ordinance?
So that would be like their subdivision or the stormwater ordinances, the management of any kind of grading ordinances. That all is met. They had one waiver just for how close they are to the property line with the two lots where they're grading within 5 feet, but they still have the proposed stormwater to manage everything they have proposed for each of the two lots.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? We have a motion and a second. And we have our comments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next agenda item, we have discussion of drafting a public comment policy. Mr. Ratcliffe, or is that Mr. Esposito?
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so just for those following along, this item on the agenda is not proposing any action, so this is a discussion of the Board of Supervisors. For those of you who are on our website and clicking on our agenda, if you go to number 8, discussion of a public comment policy, there is a memo and a sample policy from the solicitor that can inform some of this discussion. I think Mr. Esposito has some comments to make, and we look forward to the discussion of the board.
Yeah, I think we wanted to start exploring public comment policies, so if you could just share that information.
And after last week's meeting, I provided the board with a memorandum regarding the abilities and limits of a governmental authority on public comment at public meetings to try and help initiate the discussion. Just a couple of general things I wanted to mention about the public comments at public meetings. First, the authority to make public comment at a public meeting of a political subdivision is derived from the Sunshine Act. A lot of people think that it's under the First Amendment, which it's not. There's some First Amendment things that the board needs to take into consideration. But under the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act, the township at a minimum must allow residents and taxpayers the opportunity to make public comment at public meetings. The board may choose to allow others, non-residents in particular, to make public comment if it so chooses. However, once the board determines who has the right to make comments at the public meetings, it should remain consistent and not waver back and forth from meeting to meeting. Case law has determined that a governmental authority may restrict the time, place, and manner as long as those restrictions are reasonable, content neutral, tailored to serve a governmental interest, and leaves open alternatives for communication of the information. Again, First Amendment rights get mentioned often in the public comment situations. For public comment at townships' public meetings, the First Amendment is only really implicated if the commenter's speech is stifled due to their expressed viewpoint. So if you just don't agree with something somebody's saying and you cut them off, that's where you're going to run into First Amendment problems. If you allow them to speak the whole time and give them the reasonable opportunity, then you wouldn't come into any issues there. We have reviewed and other Bucks County municipalities' public comment policies. It does seem that many, if not most, of the other municipalities have implemented at least a time limit per person on public comment. The most common time limit that we see is 3 minutes, but there are some that allow up to 5 minutes. It's pretty inconsistent after that on whether they allow non-residents to speak versus residents. I couldn't give you a way that it's more common one way or the other. One common thing that when they allow residents and non-residents to speak is that they would allow residents to speak first, let them get through all residents, and then they would allow non-residents. And when I say residents, I want to include taxpayers in that as well, because all taxpayers within the municipality have that right. I have provided a sample policy, and that is all it is a sample policy. It was not my recommendation of what I believe the policy should be. It was just to help initiate discussion of what some of the policies could possibly be. I'm here to answer any other questions or assist in the furthering of the discussion.
Could you just give a simplified explanation of, a typical public comment, one of the examples that you have in here, just a summary of it?
So I'd say a pretty typical public comment policy is that public comment on non-agenda items is limited to 3 minutes. They would allow all residents to speak during that public comment policy first, then would allow non-residents to come in and speak. With the public comment policy, one thing I wanted to mention to the board that I would like us to implement moving forward, and I believe it is in my memo, is that we stop requesting the the public to give us their addresses. Simply, we want them to ask whether they're a Middletown Township resident or not. The reason we don't want to ask for, request or require them to give their address is if they want to give us their address, it's up to them if they do. We don't want to require it because that does become into First Amendment issues of they could be afraid for repercussions if they give their actual address to somebody that they're disagreeing with at a public meeting. So I just wanted to, that's something that we should move forward with here on out. The other possibilities that you can do with public comment is you could have a public comment on agenda items in the beginning of a meeting, allow them to again comment on the actual agenda item, or not if you gave them the opportunity in the beginning, and then at the end of the meeting have public comment on non-agenda items. Depends on how much, it's very inconsistent throughout the townships of which policies they look at with that.
So they would have, before we even discuss what the agenda items are, they would have an opportunity to make comments on the upcoming agenda items without hearing that, or they could have an opportunity to have time to speak to the agenda items as we're going through them, kind of like how we're doing.
Yes, I would say more often than not, the way the board currently does it with allowing public comment during the agenda item is more common, but there are places that have the public comment on agenda items in the beginning of the meeting. There are municipalities that have that.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
I'll just start with, once this was brought up to me, I've kind of been struggling as to, do we initiate anything or do we keep it as is? One of the things I think I'm strong on personally is letting residents and non-residents speak on agenda items at that particular item. I know it gets difficult because there's back and forth, and a lot of times there's things that, the residents don't like that we have to do. But I think it's important to keep their voice, because I think also what I've learned in the past 4 years on this board is that they provide some good questions and comments to developers that we potentially take into consideration when we vote. So again, the time limit, if we wanted to do something like that, that's fine. That's the piece that I think I care about the most, is allowing that residents be able to hear the particular discussion of said agenda and comment on it.
Yeah, I agree. I think if somebody decides to take time out of their day and come down and speak to something, they definitely should be heard. I think it's important that they have the opportunity to speak to the agenda items, like you said. I think this is just an opportunity for us to share our thoughts on it and to let people know and educate them about what the typical or some of the examples of these policies are. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say as a general premise, I'm not opposed to a time limit. I think you have to balance, obviously, the interest of, as you said, allowing people who've taken their time out to come here to participate in our government. You want to make sure that they do that. And frankly, I think our government is more effective and more robust when we do have public participation, so we wouldn't want to do anything that discourages folks from coming. I actually think a time limit might make these meetings maybe more desirable for folks. I think, one of the things that is difficult as a chair, having done this for a long time, is, how do you control public comment when there really are not any guardrails? And it's sort of left to you to decide, okay, when has this comment gone on long enough? When are we hearing the same comment over and over again, and it's no longer adding value to the discussion? And that's really hard to make that decision, especially when you're trying not to at least create the appearance that you're not allowing people the opportunity to be heard. I think I did look into this. I mean, my research sort of suggests the same thing. We are one of the, it seems like the few places that do not have any time limits. I know the county has time limits. I think actually historically Middletown used to at some point in time. I'm not positive. I'd heard that. I'm not sure. I also think that there is value to at least considering separating out public comment for residents, taxpayers versus non-residents, non-taxpayers, because putting on a public meeting like this is an expensive enterprise. Not obviously for us, but for our township staff who are here during the evening, police, other personnel. I assume there's overtime being paid, all the technology, all the things. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, what do you think it costs to put on a public meeting of the Board of Supervisors? I'm sure it's not inexpensive.
I would say $2,000 if you count the time of consultants, professionals that participate in this meeting.
So, yeah, and consultants and professionals, I mean, they're
I think that's a
charging by
low
the hour,
estimate.
presumably.
I think that's a relatively low estimate.
Okay, well, I think that there's value in, the people whose tax dollars are paying for this meeting deserve the opportunity to come and interact with their government and be heard on issues that concern them. I think it's a fair question as to whether people who do not live here and do not pay taxes here have the same right. So I'm not necessarily advocating for saying non-residents shouldn't be allowed the opportunity to speak. I think we're in a unique scenario in Middletown where we are so intertwined with our neighbors and with the boroughs. There are a lot of issues that, affect the boroughs and our neighbors. And so I think those people should have the opportunity to come, because I certainly would hope that Middletown residents would be heard in our neighboring municipalities in similar situations. So I certainly don't want to exclude that type of participation, but I think maybe some sort of separate public comment period is something I would be inclined to consider. I don't know. Those are my
Yeah, I look back at
thoughts.
the sewer authority and that meeting where we had so many Newtown residents, and we knew that our residents were going to the other municipality. And again, I would want to hear them, and I'd want them to hear our residents. So that reciprocal relationship is important.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you bring that up, because I was going to bring up the same example, because I was one of the Middletown residents who went to Newtown to speak out against the sewer plant that they were going to be putting on our border. They did separate resident and non-resident to prioritize their residents, but I felt very appreciative that they all sat there and heard all of our comments, very much in opposition to what they were doing. So I'm sure that wasn't comfortable, but I think it eventually led to a good outcome. I do agree with you, though, Mike, that I think we should separate resident and non-resident, because I would like to see our residents prioritized. I think their voices are most important, but I do agree that we're all interconnected. Like, Langhorne Borough is not very far from here. They should have an opportunity to come and talk to us, because a lot of the stuff we do affects them, but I would like to see our residents prioritized in any policy.
The other thing real quick that we didn't talk about, I don't think, is the concept of a sign-in sheet, which I know that's something I tried to employ, not very well, frankly, when I was chair, was to have a sign-in sheet and actually use it. That, I think, creates a little bit of organization and structure if folks sign in, if they want to make a public comment on a non-agenda item. Does a couple things. Number one, it potentially gives the board and staff a heads up as to an issue that might be, coming. It also just creates a little bit more order, instead of folks just sort of like it's a race to the podium to whoever gets up there first. That's just another thought.
So if there is a sign-in sheet and that's submitted when the meeting begins, those people will get to speak, and other people, if they're not on that sign-in sheet, they don't get to speak, or we can make that decision as we go?
What you would likely do in this situation is everyone that's on the sign-in sheet would get to go first. Again, if you do, depending on if you do the resident, non-resident, and then you can ask after you get through the sign-in sheet, just ask if there's anyone else for public comment. But everyone on the sign-in sheet gets to go first. Or we can make people make sure we remind people to sign into the sign-in sheet when they all get in. But there's always some residents that dwindle, come in after the meeting has already started, and we may have already pulled the sign-in sheet by that point in time. So you don't want to limit their possibility to discuss.
Okay. And if there is a time limit and we feel that we need to hear more from the resident or non-resident, we can extend that time.
Yeah, in those situations, what you would do.
Do you need to vote on that, or you can just?
Nope, you were going to want to vote on that. If we have a policy and you want to extend it an additional 3 minutes or 5 minutes, you would want somebody on the board to make a motion and allow and have the entire board to extend that.
Do we have a digital sign-up sheet for public comment, or is it only the physical one that we have?
We have a physical one that folks use. It's not really a popular, I'm actually looking at it. It's not a popular sign-in sheet at the board meetings, mainly because we don't use it. Someone who did speak, Mr. Shapcott, is on here. Interestingly, someone wrote on the back of this, "Does this work?" which I think is pretty funny for the conversation that we're having here. But I think culturally, we've sort of allowed people to sort of come to the podium and speak. So if the board wants to employ that, we certainly can. But I don't think it has to either.
Well, if we do end up using a sign-in sheet, we should probably have like a digital option. I feel like that would just kind of make sense.
We've got a lot of folks who might not value that. We used iPads when we were going through the budget process to participate, in the live questionnaires that we had, and we had folks who really weren't excited about the utilization of technology. So I think having both of those options might be helpful.
Okay, and this is just a discussion. We're not voting on anything. We're not making a motion. Any other comments? Can I take comments from the public? Any other comments or questions from the public?
Hi there.
Hey.
Eric Bruno, 7 Nights We Come. Yeah, so I looked over Mr. Esposito's memorandum. I will go ahead and co-sign his research. It was very thorough. A lot of billable hours there. No, I'm kidding. I did, Mr. Ratcliffe, did you share my information with the board recently?
I did. I think they've all reviewed it. They were all provided it.
Okay, so I did provide my own information for it, and I'm happy to hand it to anyone. These are my recommendations here. I wasn't 100% sure if the sample that was sent was for non-agenda items or agenda items. Wrote a couple things down while I was listening. Well, first, I'd just like to point out, over the course of 2025, the meetings have been staffed with the public a lot more fuller than it is today, and it kind of makes me, sad that people decided that they only had to stay for the budget or 1 or 2 items and then not show up. Democracy is a continuous process. I'm just going to put that out there. I do want to point out one of the things that we do here that's a really good cultural thing that a lot of people love is call and response. We'll tangle it up if for it to have it in basic terms. You watch the Bucks County and the public comment there, the 3 minutes, it's a timer, it's very boring, it's very dry. It's very courtroom-like, where you don't get interrupted, and it's not the type of culture that I would prefer in Middletown Township. I love the call and response that we have, going back and forth. To the point of, it's a small point, to the point of addresses, that would be off of the cases of Marshall and Rowe. These are 2 referenced case studies or cases in his memorandum. The courts did find that we don't have to say your address out loud. It was more in the written form, had to be provided. So there is that. Let's see here. We talked about expenses. What percentage of our $52 million budget is really these meetings? I don't think that's really a consideration. We're a 50,000 population township. I think we can, if we have a very large topic, a very heated topic that comes in, I don't think that budget is a consideration. Yes, I do feel for all the professional staff. If we do have to go to midnight or on there, yes, I do feel that, but honestly, that just can't be a consideration as far as people coming up.
Just to engage in call and response with you. They actually love coming to our public meetings, so it's all good.
Okay, yeah.
As you can tell, there's a lot of enthusiasm here, and they're super excited to participate.
No, yeah. Fair enough. That being said, Mike's comment about how long is long enough. I can understand if you're not providing any new information and you're repeating the same thing over and over and over again. I get that. In my own, although I will say in my own proposal, I did propose a public comment, an availability of a filibuster by the public allowing here. If there is a topic that is so detestable by the public is the only way I can put it. I absolutely think that a more democratized version of government where the public can participate and actually participate in the legislative process, in my view, is really important, and that there should not be a limit on if somebody can, as long as they stay germane to the topic. I don't want coming up here reading nursery rhymes. I do understand that, but if someone wants to push themselves all the way for a few hours to stop something going through, I think that should be allowed, to be honest with you, just because we don't. It is a little bit novel, although I have found examples that do allow the public to talk and talk and talk. I was having a conversation with Mr. Radcliffe about is it Mennonites down in Delaware County? If you want to give a quick overview, you're better at explaining that my memory.
Mr. Bruno and I talked about how there are certain parts of southern Chester County that are Quaker communities, which I think is what we talked about, and how a lot of their meetings are run sort of like a Quaker town hall, Quaker meeting. And for those who aren't familiar, sort of the notion in the Quaker church is sort of speak when you feel called for as long as you feel called to. And there are some meetings that run for a long time because they run their government meetings like that. If anyone needs to speak at any time for however long, it sort of just continues. So that was sort of what we talked about. And the town hall style meeting of government, which you see in New England states a lot, Massachusetts, for example, their meetings are distinctly different because their form of government is different.
Yes. Although I do think, so to that point, I do think that a lot of my proposals and the comments that were provided, a lot of the current case studies and the Sunshine Act and all that, those give limitations more to the government rather than the public, in my view. There's nothing stopping you guys from instituting a policy that does promote more conversation. I have no problem with the non-agenda items having their limitation, 3 to 5 minutes. These are all new things that you guys haven't had time to chew on, and just getting into a back and forth doesn't make sense on some of that stuff, especially if it's new information. We all know about fire trucks these days, but other things could populate that you just don't have a response to, and I can appreciate that. My concern is limiting speech within the agenda items. The Sunshine Act requires you to put this out for a reason, so that people can come up here or can see, okay, this is what they're going to talk about in tomorrow's meeting. I want to say something, so they can take the time, the 24 hours. Yes, they're doing homework before the night before it's due, but they can take the time to formulate what they want to say, and I want them to be able to come up here and be able to say it as deeply as they want. Let's see. Again, all the case law and the Sunshine Act is more prescriptive. It's not mandatory on there. Yeah, that's kind of where I felt. I felt that I needed to say that we need to be more democracy is better, and limitations on the public. I find, especially on agenda items, I find more parent-child relationship is not appropriate. Where you guys are not the parents of the public, you guys are elected officials and do work for us, and I think that's where we should focus on, in making sure that we can maintain a conversation. And like I said, the public filibuster is a little bit out there, but I think it could be appropriate in a lot of cases. So I'll shut up.
No, we totally appreciate your comments and your thoughtful interpretation and looking at it and providing your examples. I think what we want to do is just to make sure that when people are here, they're heard, but we also want to be respectful of time, especially. I think, you said it eloquently with the people that are not residents, or if it's not related to if it's not related to agenda items, we might need to kind of corral that in, because we want most of our discussion to be centered on what we're here to meet on, because we are prepared to speak about that. So I do appreciate your comments and your thoughtful input.
Do any of the other municipalities have limits on the topics that someone can come to the board with on non-agenda items?
I haven't seen anything like that, no.
Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Ratcliffe or Mr. Esposito? Any other comments? Oh, you have a comment? I'm sorry.
All good. Lance Eggers, again. I'm going to split up my thoughts on, and I read Mr. Esposito's briefing. Very informative. I think when it comes to taxpayers and residents and non-residents and non-taxpayers, I think there's two balls of wax. Probably coming into this meeting, I was like, I don't really care what you do to the non-taxpayers or non-residents because they don't live here. But understanding that they could provide some value, maybe allow the taxpayers and residents that live here and put them at the end of the meeting like one of the recommendations. As far as time and limiting taxpayers and residents, I would just disagree with that wholeheartedly, because everybody else is being paid to be here. When I'm actually paying as a taxpayer the ability to have the meeting. So if I'm here, I don't want to be limited one on topic or on whether it's agenda item or not. If I feel like it's important as a taxpayer, I want to be able to bring it up and discuss it. I think Mr. Kizak, as the chairman of the board, has done a decent job on when things are getting off topic or things are going on too long. You already have the ability to say, hey, are we going to discuss anything new? Or Mr. Ratliff does a decent job sometimes, and Stephanie did as well, to say, hey, maybe that's too much for this meeting, but let's exchange information. So we already have things in place. But when we start limiting what taxpayers are allowed to talk about or how long they're allowed to talk, it's almost like saying, hey, you taxpayers can't limit our ability to make bad decisions, but I can limit your ability to complain about them, right? And I don't know if that's the message we want to send. I think when I thought about this whole discussion about limiting or making rules about public comment, I was like, don't we have more important things to worry about that constituents have been complaining about at board meeting after board meeting, that other townships are passing other ordinances to address those issues, and we're here talking about limiting speech. My last thing is, who does it benefit? I don't think anytime we limit the ability of a taxpayer or resident to speak, it benefits the resident or taxpayer. May benefit the board. The board meetings may go less. I'm not really worried about that. I don't show up to a board meeting and go, I came here, and there's a lot of people that I don't agree with what they say, or maybe I feel like they're wasting our time, but that's their right to come here and speak. And I'm sure some people get upset that I speak sometimes, but that's what you get when you're a taxpayer. So those are some of my thoughts on the matter. Like I said, non-residents, non-taxpayers, go ahead and limit whatever they got to do. Maybe we can shorten the meetings that way, but we can still get some of that comment so we understand. But residents and taxpayers, I think that's just a bad road to go down. I think it's the wrong message to send. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other questions or comments?
No, I just want to, I know this was kind of the first time that we've ever had like a discussion before actually voting on something. So I just want to thank you for handling it this way and allowing the discussion to occur and then having something put into writing. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And it's a discussion, and it was meant to be informative because a lot of people had questions and were interested in it and had brought it up. So I appreciate everybody investing time into it. With that, we can move on to the next.
I was just going to ask a question. So is there an expectation from the board, just trying to manage this, is there an expectation from the board for Mr. Esposito to present a policy based on your feedback tonight? Is that what you're expecting at this point? And if so, do you have everything you need to draft what you think it is the board is looking for? If we can limit that back and forth, that's always helpful.
I mean, I was taking notes as to what the board was commenting on, but I didn't hear any comments after the public comment, so I
I was just
wasn't.
going to say, I don't know that we have a clear consensus
Yeah.
at this point,
I
and we
don't
did hear
either. I
public
think we have
comment.
more questions.
That's what
and more
I was kind of thinking,
considerations.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to discuss it more.
Is this something you want to discuss at a future meeting in February or
Yeah,
March?
I think we need to, maybe at an executive
Nope.
meeting? No? No?
No, we're
It
not.
would need to be a
we-
public
we-
meeting.
And a
yeah,
public
we
meeting
between
can't,
only two of you.
But what I can possibly do here is kind of give, put together a couple different policies of what I've heard from the board tonight. Not one policy, just kind of give a policy and even just bullet points highlighting certain ones that can be removed, and send it around to the board just to kind of review and maybe give their feedback to me individually and possibly discuss that at a future meeting as well. Does that sound like a good
That
plan?
makes sense. Yep.
That would be the board and the public, right? The information you got from the board and the public.
What Mr. Esposito is going to present, we're not voting on it. He's just giving us some options.
I have a separate idea, if I could just jump in here, Mr. Bruno. So why don't we have, and just brainstorming out loud, why don't we have the solicitor prepare a couple different policies based on the feedback that we heard in the total room today? Option A, option B, option C, just sort of different. We can provide those in the agenda packet, either in February or March, depending on what the February agenda looks like. I think it might be heavier. And that could be a discussion piece at a public meeting, just like we did tonight, right? Because it seems like it's a very public conversation, and so we can continue to have the public conversation. And we could sort of present those and hear your feedback in real time. How does that sound?
And my point was just that Jim said, the feedback, I was taking notes from the feedback from the board. Well, it would be the board and the public.
Oh,
was my
right.
point.
Oh, yeah. I think it's, a
just
cooperative effort.
just
yeah.
clarifying language, that's all.
Yep. Okay. So you're going to share that with us, and then we'll look at it probably February, March. Probably March.
Probably March, but.
Great, thank you.
Sorry. Our next agenda item, consideration of authorizing approval of employment agreement for Township Manager Eden Ratliff. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to authorize approval of employment agreement for Township Manager Eden Ratliff.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public?
I just want to say, he's been here a short time, but he's made himself pretty important to Middletown Township. Good hire.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments? Did you have a comment?
No, I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work since you've been here. I know it's only been 6 months, but I think we saw with the budget that the amount of transparency that you've provided us and the public has been extremely well received, and I thank you for all of the things that you put together for the budget and everything else that you're doing.
Yeah, I also wanted to say thank you. I love the communication, the transparency. I really feel that we are being able to educate our residents, share the information in a timely manner, especially the budget process. Truly appreciate that. Any other comments?
I would just say, I can't believe it's been 6 months already. It's flown by. But you are a tireless worker, and you give everything you have to this community. And it's appreciated by the board. And from a lot of residents I've spoken with, it's appreciated by the residents as well. So we're glad you're sticking around.
I thought this was just going to be approved and we'd move on, so I wasn't ready for all that. Thank you very much for those comments. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to serve in Middletown. I tell the team all the time, right, when the alarm clock goes off in the morning, I'm excited to jump up and come to work. a lot of things to do here, and it's a great privilege to serve, and I really value working with all of you guys and the public here, and of course the team, who frankly makes my job a lot easier, so I appreciate them too. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to doing this in Middletown for a long time.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Next agenda item, consideration of authorizing resolution number 26-8R, updating the township fee schedule. Okay.
Hello, thank you, Ms. Chairwoman Hannah. The fee schedule provides a list of charges for municipal services, like our permits, our plan reviews, and ensures that fees are consistent across all of the different administrative and professional services that we provide. The policy before you tonight is an update for the fees for 2026. We reviewed all of the fees in detail by department to, again, ensure that the fees cover the cost of the township and staff to administer and provide those fees. We compared the fees to neighboring municipalities and any legal regulations for those fees. Most of the changes were minor adjustments, but we did update the presentation so it looks completely different than it did before. We aligned fees for residents and residential and non-residential properties in the same area so we could ensure that the fees were consistent across the different permitting and fee types. There were some increases that were significant, so I can go through those if you'd like. We had an increase in sorry.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sorry.
Contractor licenses, we did increase all of those $20 from $130 to $150 each. That was a budgeted increase in the budget that you approved. That was a total increase of $7,000 from the prior year budget, including that $20. We budgeted 350 licenses a year. I had noted that there were increases in fines. The increase in the snow parking fine was done actually 2 years ago, but it had not been updated on the actual fee schedule. So it was updated from $25 to $50 2 years ago. The increase has already been included in the budget, but that is a change if someone's looking year over year. The largest area that we had increases is the zoning hearing board. So currently the fees are paid by the applicant to cover the cost of professional services to review and administer the hearing board. Last year in 2025, we had a large number of continuances that occurred, and so our expenses were much higher than the fees that we brought in. For 2025, our revenue was $46,000, and our expenses were $116,000. So that's a $70,000 shortfall in the fees covering the actual services that were provided. So what we have in the current fee schedule that's being proposed is new fees for continuances and extensions. So we'll continue to monitor these monitor the revenues that come in against the expenses for those same kind of the different hearing meetings to see if the new fees are covering the actual expenses that we've incurred. And we'll see if there's any adjustments that need to be made so that we don't have another shortfall like that for these services. The other item that I noted there were changes was public safety. We had increases in some fire department operational permits. This was really just an alignment of all of the different permit fees. We had some that were $20, some that were $50. So we just made them all $40. All the main ones are $40. There are some specialty ones that are higher, but they're all the same fee now, so they're consistent. There was also new fees added for event standby and training. So our fire personnel would go and provide training for a daycare center that is required to have fire safety training for their staff. We would do that at no cost previously, but it is costing our firefighter time, and a lot of the time is overtime hours for our firefighters. So we have instituted a new fee on the schedule to cover some of that time and the cost of our firefighters to provide those services for for-profit businesses. Let's see. Under park and recreation fees, there was a restructuring of the field usage fees. to break out for-profit and not-for-profit entities using our facilities. If you have more detailed questions, we can bring up Park and Rec, but the fee schedule was laid out and just broken out to clarify that we want nonprofit and residential people using our facilities, prioritizing them over for-profit, non-residential entities. Finally, there was a credit card processing fee added under the finance department. We saw our credit card fees increase significantly in 2025. We had to go to a new processor related to our accounting system. We don't currently charge a fee to anyone using a credit card for online payments, except for 2 instances that are done online where I believe the fee is $1.25 for processing. We pay in excess of 4% for our processing fees, and none of that is being passed on to the residents or the applicants who are using the online payment system. So the fee schedule does include a fee up to 4% that could be applied on the different types of charges. There are different ways that residents are paying for services through the fire system, through Park and Rec, through building and zoning. So all of those have their own processing systems that we have to look at and say, well, this is a fee for this service or that service, and kind of make it consistent across the board. But we did want to put that on there as a potential fee that could be applied to any online payments.
So can you just acknowledge how much in credit card fees the township paid in 2025?
I don't have the exact number offhand, but it went up significantly to like $50,000.
That's what I thought,
Like
50,000 was in my
$10,000 to $50,000. It was,
And that's what we had to cover.
Yeah, so the taxpayers are underwriting that cost.
Yes. So I'll open it up to any questions.
Yeah, I do have a question, because the gap that you talked about between revenue and expenses was scary. I know, obviously, we can't predict how many applications we'll get. Was 2025 like an unusually high amount of applicants or low amount, or was it pretty standard?
There were an excessive number of continuances. So it was people coming before the board and then they would push back to the next meeting. And every time you do that, you have to re-advertise, you have to redo mailings, you have to have the lawyers redraft everything. So it was adding duplicate costs every single time they would extend. And if you have more questions, Jim can answer, but continue.
Is that from non-residential applicants mostly, or residential? So I imagine residents wouldn't want to keep.
I think it's both.
Yeah, it's both.
I would say first, the number was probably pretty consistent with previous years. However, there was, I would say, very complex cases, some of them being residential. And yes, a lot of them did ask for continuances. And when you start kind of really realizing how many continuances were requested throughout 2025, again, we don't know for certain if this will solve the issue, but I think it's definitely going to put a dent in the issue by, one, yeah, they're going to get charged a fee for every time they ask for a continuance, but two, I think it actually would deter a lot of continuance requests once we actually start charging fees for that.
Right. I was going to ask, is there like some sort of penalty? Because I know from our time with the Planning Commission, some applicants have delayed many times, which wastes our money and wastes residents' time. And is there any way to...
There's really no penalty, right? It does have to come up for a vote in front of the zoning hearing board every continuance request, but there's really good reasons why they're asking for a continuance in many cases. Now, I don't know if anybody knows Mr. Bill Cousins that's on the zoning hearing board. If you ever want to get him going on continuances, you'll probably ask for a couple hours of your life back after that. But it is very frustrating for the zoning hearing board a lot of times that they keep seeing these continuances and wondering why. But I do think it's actually really racking up a hefty bill on the township side of things.
Yeah. Okay. And these, a question for you, I guess, the rate increases, is that, I mean, I know we can't say for certain if that would completely fix the gap, but are we expecting like a significant dent in that gap?
As I said, 2025 was an unusual year. Going back and looking at prior years, our expenses were not as high and they weren't as out of whack. So I can't exactly say that, yes, this is going to fix the problem. We're going to look at it at the end of the first quarter and see where we are, if it looks like we're getting things covered. But it's an ongoing process, and hopefully this won't happen again now that we're fully aware of the continuances.
So just to I agree with everything Ms. Huckleberry said, as well as Mr. Ennis, but just to add to the conversation, the volume of applications to the zoning hearing board is not really a function of the fees, right? It's more of a function of the codes and what residents and developers either need to do or desire to do, and just sort of how that process plays out. There are some code enhancement or adjustment opportunities that I think we need to explore that have been a subject of discussion in front of this body previously. Those are budgeted. Frankly, some of our smaller lots in the lower end of the township, anytime they want to do anything, they have to come before the zoning hearing board to get relief. So that's a cost to them. It's an application in front of the ZHB, and it's of course a burden on our process. But changing fees isn't going to change that. It's going to be addressing the code and compliance within it that'll change that.
Gotcha.
I'm shocked at the volume of our zoning hearing board. From the developer perspective, I'm not surprised because of how much growth pressure there is on Middletown. But from a zoning code and lack of updates over the last, half a century, I'm not surprised. So I think if we sort of started to address those things, we may see the volume shift.
Right. And I mean, by lower end, you're talking about Levittown specifically, because I think there was a previous board meeting where we talked about that, because I'm a lifelong Levittown resident, so I know we've had adjustments made on our property and how it can really rack up a high bill for residents, and that is like the most working class part of our community. So I guess anything we could do to try to lighten the burden of cost on them, I would love to see that.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to thank you guys for looking at this in depth and doing that, expenses to revenue. So I just ask, keep us updated on how it's going and reporting on what it's going to look like. So that way, if we do need to change our fee schedule again, we can be on top of it.
Yeah, I agree. I really appreciate the analysis because I think there's this misconception that fees are a profit-generating enterprise for the township, which they certainly are not, and it really is just trying to recover the cost for services. And so I think the way you've explained it and broken it down is actually very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just want to add that this is sort of the back end boring side of government that's really, really important, right? We just went through a budget process. We talked a little bit about that tonight. It's not, the government is not, at least not here, this opportunity to sort of just say, oh, well, more funding is needed, we'll raise taxes, right? It's sort of looking at the professionalism of government as a whole and sort of figuring out, are we looking at every lever we have to ensure that the government is sort of in balance, right? We talked a lot about our different funds and making sure that they're sort of balanced within themselves, structurally. This is a part of that. So really appreciate the team that did this. This wasn't all Ms. Huckleberry, as she was the leader. There were quite a few people internally. Some of them are here who were a part of this process. So while budget was happening and the whole community was focused on that whole process, this team is separately meeting, sort of working on all this stuff, right? Because we can do more than one thing at once to sort of make sure that things are humming along the way that they should. So thank you to all of them for their work. Really important and something we should be doing routinely as our costs continue to change.
I agree. Yes. Thank you so much.
And I believe there's the policy briefing summary with the recommended motion, if you agree with the fee schedule.
Okay. I make a motion to adopt resolution number 26-8R to approve the 2026 fee schedule effective January 13th, 2026.
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Our next agenda item, consideration of authorizing advertisement of an ordinance to amend chapters 190 and 363 of the Township Code of Ordinances. Mr. Ennis?
Yes, I'll try not to get too lost in the weeds this one because it gets a little wonky. You have basically two things here that's brought in front of you. One is a more immediate issue, and Chapter 190, that contains all the references to your building codes, as well as your fire prevention codes. Chapter 363, all references to your property maintenance code. Both of those maintain consistency with state requirements, mainly the what we call Act 45, the Uniform Construction Code. The state adopts model codes that have various additions. I don't know, even when I first started here, we went through this from making sure that the township was now consistent from an upgrade from a 2015 model code to a 2018 model code. Well, the state just recently adopted the 2021 model code. So all the references in those chapters that are in our model or in our code of ordinances now needs to accurately reference the 2021 model codes. That's the first level. That's basically what the more immediate thing that is being requested here is to advertise and make sure that those changes get adopted and get adopted pretty quickly so that we're maintaining consistency with the state. The second level, and this is something that's not going to be done immediately, but it's also just requesting that we start looking into amending the building code to ensure that we have more strict requirements for residential accessory buildings that are under 1,000 square feet. Now, it's a very strange thing that Middletown has never done this before from the time that they adopted and maintains consistency with the state way back in, I think, 2003, 2004. It was actually even brought to my attention by the previous building code official, Tom McCool. Tom McCool even started working on it, and so we're finally just trying to get that over the finish line. And what that means is that we don't, if you come in to the township and try to build an accessory building that is a residential accessory building that's under 1,000 square feet, you need a zoning permit, and that's about it. So how that residential accessory building is built, especially when it comes to foundation and framing and all those important things, there's no real building permit that is required. And 1,000 square feet is huge. So also when we start talking about tighter lots, Levittown lots, even like 500 square foot of residential accessory building probably should go through some level of oversight to ensure that the foundation's poured correctly, the framing's correct, and all that sort of thing. So what else would be a result as far as what is proposed for construction? So I think I covered it about as best as I could, as easily as I could, but you have the impacts. The impacts are going to be positive. You're maintaining consistency with the state, ensuring that public's health, safety, and welfare is protected. And I do recommend that you allow for these amendments to the chapters of 190 and 363 be drafted and publicly advertised for adoption. And if you agree, I make a motion to amend and advertise for adoption Chapter 190, Construction Standards, and Chapter 363, Property Maintenance of the Middletown Township Code of Ordinances.
I have a question. So if this is determined by the state, how come it's not automatically done by the state? Why do we have to adopt it?
Yeah, the legal nuances, I'm going to defer to.
So oddly enough, there is, we actually have language in the ordinances that actually do say that we automatically will adopt the newest edition adopted by the state. However, there's case law that says we're not allowed to do that, so we actually have to adopt and specifically name the year of the edition that we're adopting, because it gives contractors a more specific version to look at, so they know what version is specifically in ordinance when they're coming and looking. So we can't just do the automatic renewal.
Right. So when contractors or somebody goes to build, what is going to be a process? They have to go in front of the zoning hearing board, and that's where the ordinance would be, or how does that work?
Oh, no, this would still just be normal permitting, but we have to make sure that now they're maintaining compliance with the most updated model code.
Okay.
So, if they actually, if we're going to kind of have this hypothetical, if they came in with building code standards that are still under the 2018 model code, well, then we would have to say, no, you have to, those standards have changed. Those requirements have changed. You have to now reference the 2021. You have to amend your plans, and we could not go ahead and issue a permit for the construction until we know that they're maintaining consistency with the most updated model code by the state, which is the 2021 now.
Okay.
So what happens in practice?
Permit.
Right.
They'll be informed.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's happening in practice across the Commonwealth is that municipalities like Middletown are going through this exact process. So developers and contractors and builders sort of know that this is happening, so they're going to come in and be saying to our
next question.
to our folks at Building and Zoning, did you guys update the new code? We're like, yeah, we're at 2021. Oh, okay, very good.
Okay.
And we go from there. So it's sort of a thing that happens almost every 2 years, but not quite.
Yeah, to your point, we've already had quite a few people show up at the counter, contractors that are definitely dialed in, going, are you doing the 2021? I heard the 2021 starting. It's like, okay, we're most likely by February we'll be effectively using the 2021.
Okay.
And then the other time you're going to see this change is in the business community when our firefighters are out performing fire safety inspections at our businesses. This code change also does impact those, so the types of fire prevention devices that the businesses are required to have on an annual basis.
We do a lot of education to make sure everyone's aware and up to speed and knows what's happening.
Okay.
And then those new requirements for the accessory. Those are things that exist in other municipalities. We just have not
Yes.
pushed it through yet.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, when I walked in at the beginning of 2022, I was floored that we didn't have that. Any other place I've ever worked at before did have that, as well as not that I have that research right in front of me right now, but I guarantee you that your neighboring townships and boroughs probably do have requirements covered for residential accessory buildings that are under 1,000 square feet for building permits.
A moment of levity here. Mr. Ennis, as we were sort of preparing the agenda and going over the PBS, comes in my office, and I was like, are we not regulating this? He goes, Eden, you won't believe it. And we just sort of laughed because it really is sort of a rarity. So it's up to the board. It's certainly a policy decision, and we can talk about that as robustly as you'd like. But it is sort of common practice. I mean, these structures are still large, and there is building happening there, and things happen. So being able to regulate that from a safety perspective, I believe is important, but it is a policy decision of the board.
Okay. All right, can I take a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to amend and advertise the adoption Chapter 190 Construction Standards and Chapter 363 Property Maintenance of the Middletown Township Code of Ordinances.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any comments from the board? Questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0.
So we'll be back in February with these items for your final consideration.
Okay. Our next agenda item, discussion of amending the sign ordinance.
Yeah, so the board may recall, earlier last year, we had some discussions about revising the sign ordinance. When I started looking into it, found out that there was a recent case law related to signs and temporary signs that is problematic for most municipality sign ordinances, including Middletown. So we believe that an amendment to the township zoning ordinance is necessary to bring the sign regulations into compliance with this recent case law. The case law is related to content-based restrictions on signs. Currently, the township sign ordinance has differing standards, for example, size and time limits and duration that you can keep the sign up. For signs based strictly upon the content of the sign, mostly, again, temporary signs. The ordinance provides content-based categories of signs that may be displayed in all districts without a permit, including real estate signs, mechanic signs, grand opening signs, yard sale signs, and opinion signs. So those are the signs that we're kind of mainly talking about. So each of those signs is a different category that might say this one can be 12 by 12, this one can be 4 by 4. That case law now says you can't do that. All those signs have to be regulated the exact same. So a lot of municipalities, not everyone's changing them yet, but there's been many discussions about changing them. So that's what this is here for. So again, the case law is basically saying we have to have a uniform standard and regulation. The biggest change that you're probably going to see is like political signs is the only temporary sign that is allowed in the right-of-way. We don't want to allow other signs within the right-of-way. So now we have to come up with the standards, and now there's no temporary signs going to be allowed in the right-of-way. That's probably the biggest thing that the public is probably going to notice. For the township itself, the biggest issue is going to probably be for, unfortunately, Mr. Ennis, with enforcing these regulations and enforcing the new standards of signs and making people come in for the permits. That's what the main reason we wanted to have the discussion, bring this up tonight, is so the public kind of knows about these revisions to temporary signs. Again, real estate yard signs, there's going to be a new standard size for it. And we have these sizes within the draft ordinance that I provided you. We can certainly discuss anything that you have questions on with regard to the size. What I would need to do at this point in time, since it's revising the zoning ordinance, we need to send this to the county planning commission and our own planning commission to review and get more discussions on them. There is already in discussions between myself, Mr. Ennis, and another attorney in my office, we've already figured out what I gave to you. I'm going to revise even farther. If you look at page 3, section E, there's regulations on signs and bulletin boards, and then further on professional home signs, and then another section on opinion signs. looking at all case law, I got to combine those three sections into one regulation as well. So those three different types of signs will all have one size as well. I can answer any questions that.
Can you explain to me exactly what's happening today and what will not be allowed to happen tomorrow? With this ordinance, like in simple terms.
Okay, so, well, you're saying today and tomorrow. I understand what
Yes.
you're saying, but nothing's being adopted tonight. So,
Correct, right.
But
What's being done now versus if this, or when we essentially put something in from an ordinance
so right
standpoint.
now, if we put this ordinance into play, again, the biggest thing I think you'll see is all the political signs that you see in the right-of-way along the roads. We're going to have to start enforcing that those will not be allowed. The rights-of-way are within the township's ownership and sometimes PennDOT's ownership, depending on the road. What we'll have to do in those situations is Mr. Ennis will probably be notified. We'll have to probably get Public Works to go out and start pulling signs. That's going to be the biggest thing I think that the township realizes.
enforcement.
The other thing is right now, again, so the size of political signs, the size of real estate yard signs, for sale signs that you see that the realtors put up, we have different standards of what that size can be. And we don't currently require permits for a lot of those temporary signs. They were not required permits as long as they conformed with the standard for that particular sign in the ordinance. So now they're going to have to come in and get a permit. It's going to be probably a minimal type permit and fee, but they would have to come in and get a permit for those.
A permit only if they're larger or not.
No.
within
They
that.
have
So
for any sign, any temporary sign that they're going to be putting.
So like a for sale sign, you're going to need to come in and get a permit. How is
Again,
this-
it's going
yeah.
to. That's where Mr. Ennis is here. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
the enforcement is going to be the
What is
biggest
this going to
issue.
cost Middletown to enact?
So the one thing that we haven't really figured out that we need to, because my understanding from the case law is we don't really have an option, right? We sort of have to do this, right?
Yes.
If we had an option, I would be advising the board to say, don't do this, right? I mean, political signs in the right of way are annoying to a lot of people, but it's temporary. We sort of get over it at some point when the elections are over. Enforcement of this is going to be really challenging. We don't have like a dedicated sign enforcement officer, right? Like we have a code enforcement officer who's out there dealing mainly with property maintenance code issues, but this is going to be challenging. My recommendation most likely is going to be sort of a reactive process, right? We're going to be relying on our partners, in the realtor community to sort of like self-regulate, self-report, and to, sort of comply with the ordinance. We'll also be relying on sort of our partners, in our active political parties to be doing education as well and doing some enforcement also. Because short of that, we wind up standing up sort of a proactive enforcement process, right? We don't have the extra bandwidth or capacity within our building and zoning department, or frankly, within Public Works. And what happens when you fail in those two areas, you end up going to the police department. I don't want them, dealing with sort of like pooling signs all the time. Like we don't have capacity for that. It's not the highest and best use of the time of the folks who are already within those three departments. So short of those partnerships and sort of, self-regulation within that, we're going to wind up having to have proactive code enforcement, which will be challenging and costly. My goal was to avoid that. I hope that we can, and it's going to be sort of leveraging those relationships to do that. So how's that for a non-answer?
It is great. And there's no way to write this ordinance that can create less of an impact on the township. It is what it is.
Unfortunately, it is. I got to follow the case law. I don't necessarily agree with the case, but I understand where they were going from, because if you don't regulate them the same, it could lead to other hairy issues. But
And have other municipalities done this? And put out
some have started. Yes, there are some that have implemented new sign ordinances, but there's many that haven't yet. So
a lot of my colleagues are sort of taking the wait and see approach to see sort of, what happens with their realtor community, and frankly, what happens in a busier election. I think we're probably going to wind up doing the same thing to sort of see, okay, how does it play out this spring? How does it play out in the fall? And go from there. So we'll see, but I haven't heard of any of my colleagues sort of jumping on board saying, yes, my board was ecstatic to enforce this new case law and stand up sort of a proactive enforcement mechanism accordingly.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
I actually have a quick question before any public comes up. So for the signs, is there some sort of penalty or fee that violators pay, or are we just paying to enforce it and that is it?
So under our ordinances, we do actually have a violation. So if somebody doesn't get the permit and we see it put up, what we would have to do is we'd have to send them a violation notice and they would get a penalty. The ones that are put in the right-of-way is a little bit different. So the township is responsible for the right-of-way. People are not allowed to put once we change the ordinance, they would not be allowed to put any signs within the right-of-way. So the township would have the ability to go and just pull those signs if, we send Public Works or somebody along those lines to go pull them. In a lot of those situations, we would probably get some sort of written authorization from PennDOT to also pull the ones that would be in the PennDOT roads as well.
And the ones that we pull from the right-of-way, those people, the organization, person, whoever, is fined? If we were to change the ordinance,
If again, if we know who put those in.
Right.
We're going to try to make an effort to, again, mostly political signs. We'll probably make most parties aware of
Easy to find
the
out
new
who put those up,
regulations
though,
and
yeah.
let them know so this doesn't happen, or probably give people, we're usually pretty good and give people warnings. We're not going to just send out violations
And can you just
right away.
Can you just explain for the public what a right-of-way means? Like, is this like, the bypass, the corner of the bypass at
So-
413 and the bypass? Is that a right-of-way? Like, what is right-of-way?
Yeah, so usually right next to all the public roads, usually from the road to the sidewalk area is the right-of-way. The township has the responsibility for maintenance, and what is allowed to go is in those right-of-way, because if we ever need to expand the road in those areas more, that's why we have that right, and or for sidewalks to put in there. So it's that area. That's going to probably be the biggest issue with these signs.
There are a couple tricks, I guess, for folks not that familiar with what a right-of-way line would look like for public right-of-way. Mr. Esposito mentioned a few things. You have the road, obviously, and like the side areas of the road. It's all the areas that are kind of publicly either owned or there's responsibility for. So a good trick is the public utilities. Usually the utility poles, they try to stay as far to the outer limits of the right-of-way as they can because they don't like to move the poles. So in general, that's usually kind of your tell of kind of how far away from the road that public right-of-way would be. There's ways to ask, and we would have information to look up to kind of clarify a specific spot or a segment of road for somebody. But that's typically a trick that folks could do, is to know how far out from the road those might go.
Yeah, this seems like a mess.
It is a mess.
To be able to.
Just agree with that.
Right.
And the right-of-way is not consistent. It changes on roads all of the time.
Right.
It moves. And frankly, most, the lay person in the public who isn't dialed into these kinds of things has no idea. They think that the township's property sort of ends where the road ends. That's not true. It becomes very complicated. It moves around all the time. So, and if you think about it in political operations, there's a lot of people who generously volunteer their times towards, political movements, and they put a lot of signs up. They don't know where the right-of-way is. They're not thinking about this at all. So it's going to be a challenge.
First of all, I wanted to say Happy New Year to all of you, because I had the flu last week, so I wasn't able to come to say congratulations to all of you. And I look forward to working with all of you for this coming year. So thank you. I also want to thank Mr. Esposito, Mr. Ennis for my favorite subject, because I hate signs. And with the right-of-way, that is complicated, because one of the biggest problem is the right-of-way. And if you go around, especially during political season, one of the biggest places that signs wind up going is, especially if you go on Route 1, all those concrete places, especially if you go on Route 1 and Flowers Mill, you'll see signs in the middle of those concrete places that they just stick them in. And then on windy days, rainy days, those signs just flutter all over the place. And then all of a sudden they'll be flying all over on the highway, and people, they'll hit cars, they'll be in the middle of the road. That has to stop. And the best place, if you're going to put a sign, put them on people's lawns. You'll come off of a ramp. The signs will be there. They'll block people's vision. That has to stop. You're blocking for people to make turns. This is why this ordinance has to be done. And Mr. Esposito and Mr. Ennis know that I have been fighting to get this done for a while in order to have a good ordinance to be done for the people of this community, because the taxpayers have been complaining about this. So thank you for doing this. And the sooner that we can get it done, the better. PennDOT has had an ordinance, but they haven't been enforcing it. So that all the state roads, that's where they have the PennDOT ordinance. And again, the sooner that we get this done, the better it is for the people. And anything that I personally can do to help, let me know. I'm there for you. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I was so focused on the other thing, I didn't even look at this one. Do you have the cases so I can look them up later? What the case laws are? Send it out. Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I was thinking about this. It might just be better just off banning all temp signs, period, straight out. I don't know how the heck we're going to enforce this. I don't know how we're going to survive accusations of selective enforcement. I don't know any of that. This sucks. We might be better off just banning them all, period, the end. And if one's up, $50 is fine, done, and you're done. I don't know, but yeah. I know of a bunch of churches that this is gonna apply to. I saw it was in the sample. That's gonna be tough for that. But yeah, on the enforcement side, it's gonna be difficult. So, thanks.
Can you just walk me through one thing? So a for sale sign is, you have to get a permit for it.
Well, not currently.
Right. In this ordinance.
Yes.
Do you have to get the same permit for a political sign?
Yes.
In your yard?
Yes.
Okay, so any temporary needs a permit for the sign?
In any zoning.
Yes. So most of these regulations are going to are more involved in the residential district. The commercial is actually, you are allowed to regulate that a little bit differently, but residential is where it's going to be impacted the most.
Okay.
No. So just Mr. Ratliff mentioned a couple things. So we're saying that we're going to require permits for these. Right now, we can set the fee. We don't have to. This process, and this is what I was discussing with Mr. Ennis last week in detail of how this is going to look when we actually try to enforce it, and more of the burden on his department. So we can come up with the process for the permit or just some other application process for these to make it as easy for everyone to get these as possible, and try to limit the fee as much as possible. Again, it's going to take some time, so we got to take that into consideration, but we can come up with the permit amount. There's not a minimal amount that we need to come up with.
Is there a maximum amount that the board
you can't charge excess to try and make
right. That's what I thought.
Profit.
But I think there might be people thinking about that, so I wanted to bring that up. And then two, does the township have to have a permit process for these? Could it choose not to have a permit? Like, could we pass a regulation that is consistent with case law that says you can't put these temporary signs in the right of way, but that there is no permit application for it? There's just expected compliance?
We could certainly look into that aspect.
Because the one thing we're not talking about is, I mean, think about how many temporary signs were just recently put up, how many for sale signs that we have. If you need a permit for every single one of those signs, there's also capacity required in building and zoning for that, right? We have folks whose full-time jobs are receiving permits, processing those permits, and turning those permits around. I will say, and I'm proud of our team, their permit turnaround time is very quick. However, no one who applies for a permit thinks that, right? They always want it sort of the next day. I mean, there are regulations about how quickly they have to turn them around, and we do it in like half the time. So they do a good job, but everyone wants their permit sort of like the moment they walk up to the desk. So I'm concerned about that. But if you're telling me we don't have to have a permit process, that might be something.
We don't necessarily have to. And one of the main reason why we were saying to get permits is there are current temporary signs that we require permits right now. And there are ones that we don't, like the for sale yard signs is probably a good one to say there. So, but we have to combine all of those now into one temporary sign
So in other words, you're
situation.
saying signs that are currently require permits then would also no longer require permits.
That's if we go that route, then we're going to say there's certain signs that we currently require permits that won't require permits.
I'm not sure that that's a deal breaker for me in terms of.
And that's where I'll sit down with Mr. Ennis and go over what those signs are and see if that's something that is palatable to the board, whether we would want to require permits on those specific signs. I don't have all of those listed in my head right now. I'd have to look at the ordinance again on that. But there are currently signs that we're combining in that require permits right now. That's why we're requiring permits for all of them.
Yeah, and I think we just need to understand, what are the costs to enforce this? And that probably lends
That's a little bit,
itself to the permit fee.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I have had discussions with a couple other attorneys in my office who've been trying to deal with this in other municipalities. I'm going to have further follow-up discussions with them to see what possibly they're doing as well.
Okay, we don't need to take any action tonight. This is just a discussion.
It was a discussion to try and get an idea of where you wanted to go. I gave you a draft ordinance just so you knew what I was kind of talking about, but I'm going to revise it even further and kind of get back to you with
I'd
some of
like
the
a
ideas
little
that we
more
were discussing tonight.
clarity.
Yeah, and I think a plan of attack from the township staff would be incredibly helpful to understand how are we going to enforce it, how are we going to let people know what a right-of-way is, and all those things.
What's it going to cost, too? So with and I don't know if I misheard this, with the proposed one that as written, it would require residential properties to get a permit to put like a political sign on their own lawn, or did I mishear that?
No, that would be correct.
Okay, I would just say that would probably be a deal breaker for me. That would be really.
And I understand that, why I put all of them in one category, which is what we had to do. So if we don't want to require the permit, there's going to be some ones that we currently require a permit for that will no longer have to get a permit. So we can certainly consider that. That's why I put it like that.
Is there a way to have seasonal signs versus non-seasonal signs in an ordinance?
I mean, I would just have another name for temporary, kind of.
Like a temporary seasonal sign and a temporary
season of selling
year-long?
houses, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I could certainly, I'll make a note and look into see if that's a way that people have done before. Any other questions on the board on this?
Thank you. Okay, our next agenda item, consideration of rejecting bids and reauthorizing advertisement of bid specifications for the Reitz Avenue Culvert Replacement Project. Is that Mr. Kiesler?
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Fellow board members, before you tonight is the Reitz Avenue Culvert Replacement Project. It was bid a few months ago. This is a design project that was really identified a few years ago. It's one of the stormwater projects that unfortunately in recent years did not have the ability to move forward. It is in the budget for this year, so we had to go out to bid at the end of last year. The project consists of the full replacement of the culvert underneath Reitz Avenue. That's for those not familiar, near our boundary with Humeville. It's a dead-end street. There's about 5 properties towards the dead-end side past the culvert. From when it was originally identified as a project, it's been determined the best approach would be to have it done in 2 phases. That way emergency access to the dead-end portion can be maintained throughout the construction. A couple other things have come up since it was originally identified as a project, one of which is just the process of placing the culvert into that spot, which involves significant equipment, as well as the water main that's currently within the road. It's Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority's water main. That is now part of our project to relocate that due to the improvements to the culvert. That line has to move kind of around where the culvert's going to be. So all those things considered, the estimated cost of the project has gone up from its original estimate. However, when we opened bids on December 8th, all the bids were significantly higher. Of the 6 bids, we considered the lowest bid and the highest bid kind of outliers. The lowest bid, although the price was attractive, the potential bidder didn't meet multiple factors of our requirements, not only with the responsible contractor ordinance that we have, but also other reference requirements and elements of our bid package that just ensures that it's a contractor that we want to have do this type of project in the township. So of the 4 middle bids, I would say the 2 lowest of those, both were qualified to all our requirements, but they were still significantly higher than what we wanted to see for pricing. So we did reach out to both of them, and both had reasons why some of their specific items were what we thought much higher than should be industry standards. It was either they missed a part of the specifications that we had in there, or they weren't quite sure about the water main, which Bucks County Water and Sewer included the specs for us to put in the bid package. So with that, it's our anticipation that if it was a rebid, those bidders would have better pricing. Now that that's been clarified, the hopes that they would be part of the bid group again. The 2 lowest bids that I mentioned are the qualified ones. The low of that one was $698,606. The next lowest above that was $710,204. We do believe that should come down to maybe more in the ballpark of like $640 for the full project, and that would include the full culvert replacement, the improvements to the stream just above and below it, addressing scour issues that are below the culvert. You can see the condition of the current culvert. That's why it's identified as a priority stormwater project to replace it. It's in disrepair. The water kind of hides the fact that there's no real bottom to the pipe currently. It's not in a situation where the road has to be closed, but it is something that is still considered a priority to get replaced this year. So with that, we would recommend that the current batch of bids that were open on December 8th, 2025 are rejected. We would rebid it in hopes to get the better pricing and then bring it back before the board for consideration again. Happy to answer any questions.
So this is going to bring us almost $200,000 higher than what we budgeted, right? At even at the 640 rate.
The placeholder for the budget that was in there with this year's budget was $450,000. That was kind of understandably low for what it should be. The 2 items I mentioned that the low bidders were considerably high on, that they should come down with. Now they have additional clarification. The other items were consistent with kind of the industry pricing for all the elements that go into this project. So that's why we would anticipate an accurate cost estimate for this project to be more in the 600s.
But the reason we budgeted $450 was because we didn't anticipate the need to relocate the water main, right? That was an unanticipated addition to the project.
That is one main item, yeah. Earlier on in the design process, the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority didn't think they would have to move that. Part of the replacement project is to improve the undersized opening there so it's an adequate culvert, especially during high storms through that area. So the latter stages of the design process, Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority clarified that no, we do have to in fact move that around what we're proposing for the culvert.
When did we get that information from Bucks County Water and Sewer that changed our design?
That was about a month before it went to bid.
And when did we put it out to bid?
It was November of last year.
Okay, thank you.
And like I said, the project started in late 2019, early 2020.
And you had talked about phases. Is this only phase one of this, or is this all phases?
It's done all at once, but it's done in 2 steps, just
Okay.
to have the, I'll call it the downstream side. If you're looking at the picture there, the right side of the road would be dug up and have the culvert replaced in that portion first, while the other part remained open, one way in each direction. And then they would switch and then finish the road and the culvert beneath. So it's still one project. It would just be done in 2 steps.
Okay, and both of these steps are included in the 640?
Correct.
Okay. And, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
What's the impact to residents right now with this? Is their house flooding? Like, what is the impact and the reason we added this? Where my head's going is this something that we would need grant funding for, given that it's escalated $200,000 higher than what we thought?
We have attempted to get grant funding for this specific project, really before the stormwater fee structure was in place, where we really needed grant funding to do any larger project that came around. That one was unsuccessful. Not to say additional effort for grant funding that might be out there can be pursued, but it wasn't successful previously when we tried that approach. So the need for the project, I would say, as I mentioned, is still considered a priority project because of the condition of the existing culvert. With the undersized pipe that's there now on the upstream side during the big storms, it does back up and cause some issues there. There's not a home right adjacent to where that pipe is on the upstream side, but there's a property that has a house there, and it's kind of flat, so it does build up the water there. On the downstream side, that scour area, which for folks that, just for information, that's where the water just kind of continuously digs out, where it doesn't have a chance to flow forward. That's a significant scour hole there. That would be addressed. What that does is it loosens the ground underneath the embankments, and there's a few trees that are part of this project to be addressed that are at risk of falling in. You'd hope they'd fall in an area that wouldn't cause an issue, but there's some of them are quite tall, so we want to make sure that's a safe condition for the folks that have property there. So it's an improvement to both the stream area as well as the culvert itself. Currently, if you would drive over Reitz Avenue over the culvert, you probably wouldn't even notice it was there, to be honest. But obviously, the condition underneath that's shown in the picture here is significant enough where it's a needed project.
And it's just as much a safety issue too. There's about a half a dozen homes that are on the other side of this, where this is their only ingress and egress from a roadway perspective. And so if this was to fail and the entire road that is over this culvert were to fail, they would have essentially no access to their property with public roads.
That makes sense.
So just to,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just to add to the grant funding question, right? It's an expensive project, which makes it hard to tolerate at the local level, but from a grant funder's perspective, it's a lot of money for 6 homes, right? Which just becomes really difficult, right? I mean, when we're looking for grant funding, they're looking to spend, give out as much money as they can that impacts as many people as they can. So when there's only 6 homes there, that makes it really difficult. So it's a bit of a challenging. So I appreciate the optimism that's been shared here, but it is a challenge. A picture is worth 1,000 words for anyone who's not looking at the slide, right? The condition of that pipe, which is also undersized, is deteriorated significantly. So I certainly contemplated whether or not to recommend to the board that we just not do this in 2026. But I think it's one of these projects that you just want to get done, right? Because it continues to get more expensive, and because it really can have a seriously negative impact on those 6 homes if it does, collapse, which hopefully doesn't happen. That gets into the point where we start looking at emergency shoring, a temporary bridge, and it becomes an emergency contract, which is much more than $650,000. If we can deviate for just a second, I want to ask Mr. Vala, what's the history on this project in terms of when it's been in budget, funding status, and the budget numbers at the time? I just want to illustrate how sort of deferring projects like this can really cost the government more money, which is what we're experiencing here.
Sure. So this has been in the budget discussions, I would say, as far back as 2020. At the time, there was an engineer that was leading our building and zoning department that was able to assist with some preliminary design work. And I would say that as time has gone on, the project cost has gone from around $100,000 all in. And as there's been more design and more, understanding of kind of the full scope of work that's needed here, the cost has gone up. And as Mr. Kessler shared, we're looking at about a $640,000 construction cost. And I will also point out that is just the installation of the culvert, which was authorized for purchase at the price of about $125,000, if my memory's correct, last year. So that is not actually factored into the actual installation cost here, nor is that including design or permitting costs.
So, and just to add to that, to continue this conversation, the reason I asked Mr. Kessler when the design change happened, that design change happened in November, but the budget number we got from RVE was before that, right? So we had every reason to believe going into 26 that this was going to be about a $450 or less than $500,000 project. We need to avoid situations, which our team is very aware of, and no one in this room has responsibility for this, but we need to avoid situations where we're looking at projects and making changes that can impact the budget when we're already in the budget process, right? Like by the time we realized that this was going to impact design on a project that needs to go forward, we'd already created the proposed budget. We'd already presented that to the Board of Supervisors. So we're sort of eating something that none of us could control here, but our partnerships with our external partners needs to be strengthened where we don't wind up in these situations. And furthermore, a way to avoid that is to not be in situations where we're looking at projects where we need to act on it this year because it's at emergency status, right? So when we know that we're sort of looking at maintenance that needs to be maintained, we need to fund it and go forth with it, which I think this year's budget definitely funds, and I think that can be sort of the tradition for us going forward to avoid situations like this. So just want to sort of acknowledge those 2 points from a planning purpose.
Yeah, and I know we got a lowest bid of 387,000, but we think that, over and above the RCO, there's other, that was just a low bid. Like, there's no expectation to think that we would get more quotes in that range.
Yeah, like I said, that low bid, although the price was attractive, and if you have the water main relocation kind of included in that, it's about $407,000. But that was pretty much the only part of that bid that was acceptable. So it was considered pretty much a throwaway, unfortunately. It would be great if one of the qualified bidders was very close to that, but all the other ones that were kind of in a pack of prices after that were in the 600s. Yeah.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments from the board.
So is it only getting rebid to the 2 qualified bidders, or is it going back out for 6 more?
It goes back out to a full public bid. Yeah, so they're able to bid on it. Any other contractor or potential bidder is able to bid as well. So we always have our fingers crossed that you would get better pricing across the board.
So there's a chance.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
You good? Okay.
I'll make a motion to reject all bids received and opened on December 8th, 2025 for the Reitz Avenue Culvert Replacement Project due to sufficient funds not available, and the rebid the project.
Second. Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public?
I know we're going looking at grant funding. Have we looked at talking to either the Water Authority or Humeville for assistance on the cost sharing here? Because I was looking at the map and the topography, and this could damage Humeville too. So I know there's like 6 people there, but like this could be a problem for them too. Have we tried reaching out to them for assistance? And as certainly the authority has funds too. Is there any opportunities there?
Well,
Information on that?
Yeah, I would say the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority, in their approach to say they wouldn't even pay for the relocation of their own water main, wasn't interested in anything beyond that as far as cost sharing would be concerned. Mm-hmm. As far as joint municipal projects, in the past, we've looked at those types of projects that kind of are either a shared boundary or some pretty close. To your point, the stream here flows from this culvert eventually down through Humeville and out to Neshaminy Creek. So there is a connection there per se. They haven't expressed any interest in being a partner in this, but
have we approached
part of the rebidding, I mean, we'll explore any options that are available to try to get the best most efficient pricing as we can.
Yeah, I think we should certainly at least approach them on it, because they get if this fails. I was just looking at it. I mean, I'm no water expert, but if this fails, they could threaten homes down there too. But I just think that we should reach out to them at least and say, we're going to fix this. Help us before your other homes, other than the 6, get damaged. That's all.
Okay. Do I need to say anything to add that you're going to investigate that and reach out to Huonville? I don't know.
I have a good.
I could just make the motion, right?
We'll coordinate with the staff. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a good relationship with some of the council members down there, so we can have that conversation.
Okay, motion is second. Any more comments from the public? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, next is item number 14, consideration of awarding Armor and Sons Electric Inc. of Langhorne, PA, in the amount of $89,745 for the Maple Avenue North Flowers Mill Signal Improvement Project. Do we have any information on that, Mr. Bella?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and Supervisors. So before you on the bidding front, a little bit of good news. We do have bids back from the Maple Avenue North Flowers Mill Signal Improvement Project. As we've discussed previously, there's a map here on the screen. This is to improve the technology. So there's really only one visual change, which I'll touch on in a moment. But this is to improve the functionality, so everything that kind of happens in the control box at 6 intersections all the way right around the corner from where we are here in the municipal building, starting at kind of the 3-way intersection at where Langhorne Yardley Road, Winchester Avenue, and North Flowers Mill all converge, heading southward towards Maple Avenue and North Flowers Mill and all the signals in between, as well as jogging to the east where it terminates at Wheeler Way, all 6 of those intersections, and improving the functionality. So currently, the best way I can describe it is that it's kind of like trying to put, ideally we'd like to put in more fuel efficient functionality into like a 1960s vehicle. And so we're trying to improve the technology within those, or kind of put a new engine in it to give it some new life. The one visual change that folks will notice is at the kind of the main intersection in this corridor, Maple Avenue, North Flowers Mill, and the Route 1 highway ramps, is you're now going to see a 4-section signal head. Currently, there is a 5-section signal head, and the new PennDOT standard for these kinds of yielding left turns is to have a flashing yellow. There's a couple of them around the township. Probably the one that folks might be most familiar with is up to the north near the bypass at the Lower Silver Lake, Swift Road, and Woodburn Road intersection. And so that'll be initially a green arrow, as folks are used to, and then when it switches to the yield, instead of just being a stagnant solid green, it's now going to flash yellow, just to remind you that you can turn left, but you do not have the right of way. And that is the new PennDOT standard, as I mentioned. The bid before you, the lowest bidder from Armor & Sons, which is a local business, is $89,745 and is actually below budget. There is grant funding to offset this as well. We are expected not even to expend all of the grant funding, and so it's an 80-20 match for this one. And so depending on how the engineering costs from Pannoni, our traffic engineer, and the construction costs pan out, it'll be an 80-20 split.
How long would the installation of this take? What's the anticipated length?
Sure, a relatively short time span. I would expect it to be done by early summer at the latest.
All right, I'll take a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I'd move to award the Maple Avenue North Flowers Mill Signal Improvement Project to Armor & Sons Electric Incorporated of Langhorne, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $89,745.
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. All right. Next, we have before us something new. Mr. Ratcliffe, our township manager, is going to be kicking off something called department reports. It's an effort to share information from each of the departments and to educate our citizens and township to what's going on in each department. Mr. Ratcliffe?
Thank you very much, Ms. Hannah. Yes, something new. So welcome to the new year and welcome to doing something different. So at the advice of the board, we are starting what we call department head reports. So if you look at the agenda, there are 5 departments, including the manager's office, who are going to present tonight. Their written reports are linked in your agenda packet. And then every other department who is not presenting tonight have written reports, and they will present next month. So why are we doing this? This is an opportunity for the board and for the public to have sort of a greater view into the work that's happening day in and day out in this community. As we talked extensively about through budget, we have a lot of dedicated professionals in our organization who are committed to delivering public services at a high level. And there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes. So this is an opportunity for them, both in writing and in a verbal presentation in a public meeting, to sort of talk about that, right? To sort of say, hey, these are the things we're doing. Here are our accomplishments. Here are things that maybe you don't see day in and day out, as well as from time to time highlight some concerns that we might talk about later in the year. It's an additional opportunity for the board to sort of dive in on some of those operations, and an opportunity for the public to be able to do the same thing. We talk about transparency a lot. This is transparency in action, right? It's the government sort of behind the scenes, sort of stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, this is what we're doing. What do you think about that? What do you need to know? What do you want to know? And to sort of be providing information in that time. One of the things I love about the budget process that we executed was that each department sort of stepped up and said, here's what we do, here are the things we need in order to do it better. My opinion is that should be an ongoing conversation throughout the year so that there are no surprises when we get to the end of the year. When we talked about this, over the course of many weeks at the leadership level internally, there was a lot of enthusiasm about that, right? Because they feel like there's this challenge when we get into budget where they say, okay, well, here's the thing, all the things that we do, make sure that you understand that so you understand sort of the justification behind this request. That's a difficult conversation to have. I think we did a great job last fall. I think the public's participation in that only enhanced that process. But I think that there is sort of a longer runway of opportunity to be able to do these reports. So if you read all the reports, which I hope you do, on a link to our agenda, they are long. It's because it's the first month, right? So as they're writing these reports month in and month out, it's sort of a continuation of a conversation. So those reports should shrink down a little bit. I did encourage for the first 2 months for our department heads to speak maybe 5 to 6 minutes. We'll see how well we do with that. But as they sort of come up here on an every other month basis, it should be a little shorter, where they might say things like, hey, that project that we talked about, last time I was here, that's continuing. Here's some updates with that. And then we have slides associated with that for conversation purposes also. So, in addition, a couple things I want to note. Is everyone looking at our agenda online? And I want to point out, I appreciated your comment about the Sunshine Law saying we need to post those agendas 24 hours in advance. We shoot to post them by the Wednesday before the meeting. We want to give the board and the public as much time as possible to review and study all of that information and to see what's happening there. So that is on our website, middletownbucks.org. Please go out and check that out. You heard several of our department heads refer to a policy briefing summary. That's a 2-page document that is designed to facilitate the conversation about what the board is considering. It sort of says, this is why we're talking about it. Here's the background, analysis, financial impact, and then the staff recommendation. It's the same information we give to the board. So if you, as a member of the public, are reviewing that information, it's literally the same link. I actually link it from the website to the board when we send it on Wednesday and Thursday when we post. So you can sort of follow along in real time with the information the board is getting and participate in the governing process in that way also. These reports are also listed there. So please make sure you check that out and let us know if you have feedback or questions. In addition, I want to give a shout out to our Public Information Officer, Liz Martin. You noticed tonight we had a PowerPoint for the entire meeting. Every agenda item sort of had a slide so that the folks out here and the public, so the folks at home can sort of follow along as to where we are. There are people who may sign in and sign out of a public meeting. They can see where we are, and there were pictures where relevant. I think a picture tells the story much easier than sometimes our explanations do, much like the Reeds Avenue culvert, where we can sort of see it dilapidating. So thank you for that. Super looking forward to it. So a couple things from the manager's office, and Mr. Valo and I are going to switch this. So I'm January, he'll report in February, and I'll be back in March. A couple things, we got a number of different grant awards totaling $1.2 million at the end of last year. One I'm really excited about is a local share account, which is $566,000. That's going to be for the roof of this building. That was a project the board and frankly the staff are not super excited about funding because it's a lot of funds towards a project that's maybe not politically sexy, but they have $500,000 in grant funding to fund that $1.2 million project is something we're super excited about. We also got a number of RDA grants, $216,000 for police vehicles. So you saw a $300,000 expense approved on the consent agenda tonight. $62,900 of that will be township funds. The rest is RDA, which we're happy about. $240,000 towards public works vehicles, $128,000 for North Station improvements, which is the North Station that the Langhorne Middletown Fire Company runs out of, $18,000 to William Penn, $18,000 to Parkland, and $23,000 for the squad, which we heard the chief talk about here earlier. So super appreciative of that. A couple things our office has been up to is including new township supervisor training. We've enjoyed spending a lot of time with Supervisor Leeton and Supervisor Gallardo sort of talking about the operations of the township, their role in sort of the governing status, the things that are happening day in and day out. They keep us in this building until midnight sometimes with all the questions that they have, which we've super enjoyed. So thank you guys for that opportunity, and we look forward to working with you. A lot of information in my report about community engagement and transparency. Would you believe that the township had over 1 million independent likes across all of our social media in 2025? Over 1 million different hits. I'm super excited, and what I'm really excited is internally they're saying we're going to beat that this year. Right, we're going to go even further. We're going to continue to engage. If you're not following us on our social media, I hope that you do. If you don't have social media, go to our website. We put a lot of information there as well. We gained almost 1,000 Facebook followers, and 5,100 is our total number. So we're looking to at least double that this year. And a majority of our reach is down to Levittown, which we're super excited about. There was a little friendly competition in the Behind the Budget series where we had our department heads getting on Facebook videos and talking about the budget as to who would get the most amount of likes. Not surprisingly, Chief Barbarilla was really leading the pack early on when he had his video. People really were excited about his video and contributions to that. But sort of a late time winner was Assistant Manager Vala, who went out and was sort of talking about the reassessment process. You might remember him sort of awkwardly walking backwards, sort of showing two different homes and how that impacts tax value. He did beat him out there. So congratulations, Mr. Vala. I think the chief is after you on the next budget, on the next video series. A couple comments were provided by the township to the RC3 project. There was an environmental assessment report that was done, which is a federally regulated part of that process. The township traffic engineer did review that report and submitted comments on our behalf, which will be a part of the permanent record, which will ultimately be reviewed by Federal Highway. If the EAP is, the environmental assessment report, is accepted by Federal Highway, which we'll find out in the late spring, early summer, then that project will move into design. Which is super important. We've got a lot of folks, especially down in the Parkland area of our community, who have a lot of opinions about the design, as they should, and it's going to be the township's job to sort of advocate for them in that process to ensure that they that their needs are met throughout that process. That time will come this summer. Right, so we're talking to some residents now who are like, we really need to influence the design, and very concerned, people who are maybe supportive or not supportive of the project. Totally appropriate. We will facilitate those conversations. We'll be advocating for those residents and doing a lot of direct outreach when we get to that part of the process, which will be the summer of 2026, not before July, could be as late as August, depending on what happens up at the Federal Highway level. And I think that's going to be it for my report because I don't want to exceed my time. Any questions from the board?
I have a question about the environmental assessment report. After that, when would we hold meetings here at the Middletown Township office, or would it be virtual or anything like that? What would that look like after
So
that?
I think it's going to depend on how much direct contact I can make with the Parkland residents there. We might literally do the old-fashioned like door hangers to get their attention. There's a lot of information about the RC3 project. Candidly, there's a lot of misinformation about the RC3 project. These processes about building projects like this are complicated in and of themselves, so I'm not surprised when that happens. So we might be going the old-fashioned route to sort of get their attention and say, hey, this is happening. You may or may not know about it. Let's talk about what your concerns are, how we can advocate for you, and make sure that they're sort of informed. I think it's probably going to be a multifaceted approach of in-person meetings here, virtual meetings for those who need it, and then individual meetings with our property owners down there, especially where they have specific needs, to make sure that we're sort of understanding what they need and advocating for them in the process.
Awesome, thank you.
Other questions from the board? Okay, thank you. Who's next?
You ready?
I think so.
All right. So good evening, Ms. Hanna and fellow board members. I'm going to give a very brief overview of our police department. I figured since this is the first of this type of meeting. I'll just start by giving a very brief overview. We were going to try to focus a little bit on our end of year numbers, but being that we're a pretty big, busy department, it's going to take us a little while to get all of our end of year numbers. So in a couple months when I go, I think it's every other month, we'll have a better grip on where we were in 2025. So just a very brief overview about our police department. So when you're thinking of Bucks County, right, there's 39 individual police departments. A good way to think about Bucks in terms of workload. Think of the big five. You have Bensalem, Bristol, us, Falls, Warminster, right? You have about 470,000 calls for service per year in Bucks County. The five largest departments account for about 45% of those calls. We're about 35% of the personnel, but we answer or handle about 45% of the workload for the county. We also account for approximately 65% or 70%. I think the mic turned off. Might be. Is it? Okay. Of arrests countywide. So that's a good barometer on how our county is broken down. Bensalem, high 60s, about 68,000 calls for service a year. Bristol's about 50. We're in the low to mid 30s every year. Falls about 27, 28,000. Warminster about 26. There's no other department in the county that reaches 20. So that gives you a pretty good idea of how the county, the workload volume goes across the county. There's about 900 sworn officers in the county. Those five departments account for about 325 of those 900 sworn countywide. Where are we? Total crimes annually, we are usually somewhere close to 1,000. In 2021, we had 971 reported crimes. 2022 was 963. 23 was 948. Last year was 893. So if you take our 5-year trend, we've been slowly declining in total reported crimes every year. Our arrests are fairly steady, usually close to about 600 arrests per year for our police department. Those are just some very quick numbers. I can tell you that on average, we handle between 1,500 and 2,000 crashes per year. The only department in the county that usually handles more than that is Bensalem. Us and Bristol are normally pretty close. Just to give you a little overview of where we are department-wise, compared to all the other departments in the county. And that goes hand in hand with our staffing, right? Bensalem is the highest staff. They're about 110. Bristol is somewhere in the mid-60s. We are 62. Falls is 54. And Warminster is somewhere between 45 and 50, depending on what their current staffing level is. Let's talk real fast. We'll do some of our highlights from 2025. We had a retirement, Lieutenant John McNevich. What that led to is we had a promotion of a lieutenant. That's Lieutenant Zach Brocious. Because Zach was promoted, we also promoted Sergeant Kyle Gracie. So we did have 2 promotions in 2025. We are not planning on any additional promotions in 2026. Another milestone for our department, real fast, is about 88% of our officers are crisis intervention trained. That is a 40-hour de-escalation program that our county commissioners would like every police officer in the county to have the CIT training. Since we're about 90%, I think we're doing pretty well countywide. We have given out, a couple of commendations, and one of our sergeants actually received a CIT award for putting that training into practice and de-escalating a potentially suicidal situation. So we have gotten really good return on that training. We try to focus on making sure that our officers are very well trained, and something that Mr. Ratliff committed to this year. The only portion of our budget that really slightly increased in our controllable portion of the budget was our training budget. So our department remains very committed to ensuring that we have high quality training for our officers. Let's see, real fast. Let me see. One other thing I do want to highlight before I close is accreditation. We are a PLEAC, that's Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission. We are a PLEAC accredited department. This year, 2026, we are going for our 5th consecutive successful reaccred that will put us into what is called premier status. There's about 1,100 police departments statewide. About 15% of them are accredited. About 2% of them have that premier status. So what that means, every 3 years we go through the reaccreditation process. That means that we have met all 137 or 139. It changes year to year standards that the Accreditation Commission requires us to meet. After the 5th successful reaccred, we enter into that premier status, so that lessens a little bit our burden. I think what the commission is saying is that after 5 successful reaccreds, you have shown yourself that you are committed to the accreditation process, and there's some trust there. So that actually kind of helps us as a department, because accreditation is a very strenuous undertaking. It's very labor intensive. It takes a big effort, but it provides us, I think, with a very good return. It helps us with liability. It helps us keep up with best practices, and it really helps our department with policy development. So, and I do want to thank, the department was accredited when I got here. I've just been very fortunate to be able to keep that with my staff, and this is going to be my 5th reaccreditation process. It's very rigorous. We're going to go through it in November, so fingers crossed we will be reaccredited for the 5th time and get that premier status. That is one of the things that we are looking forward to in 2026. And one other thing that I will highlight, we currently do have 3 officers in the police academy. I do want to make mention of one thing real fast. We are currently at 62 sworn. When I got here, we had 54. I know sometimes I ask for a lot, and I think sometimes unfairly, me and my department, we kind of get accused of, wanting so many officers. But it's been 12 years, and we've basically grown our department by 8. When I got here in 2014, I was handed a staffing study from 2011 from Safe City Solutions that was paid for by the township. It cost $10,000. And it said that our department should be staffed at that time at 62. So it did take us 12 years to get there, but we've gotten there. So I do want to recognize, I want to make that point as well, that a lot of the hiring we do, I know I get a lot of questions sometimes on why are we swearing in so many officers. They are replacements. We're not adding to the department. We're really replacing those who retire. We've hired about 33 officers since I've been here. 25 of those were retirement replacements. One thing I want to say in closing, I do want to thank you, the Board of Supervisors. I know Mr. Gallardo, Mr. Layton are new to the board. Every board since I have been here has been overwhelmingly supportive of our police department in terms of funding, in terms of just the overall support that you give us is deeply appreciated by me, by my command staff, and by everybody in the police department. We couldn't do what we do without your support. I know we're expensive, but I really appreciate the commitment to funding that you give us, and we try to be as absolutely responsible as we can with the funding that we get. And I just hope that we live up to the board's expectations. Our desire is to keep crime in our community low. I think we do a good job of that. And we try very hard, not just to keep crime low, we try to be very proactive and maintain a very high quality of life in our township. So, moving forward, I'll get a little more detailed in reports. I don't really like to just throw up numbers and then every other month have you say, how come this number's this one this month and that one that month? That's really doesn't accomplish anything. But I just wanted to kind of give everyone an overview of who we are, what we do, what the numbers are countywide. I think sometimes everybody thinks Middletown's kind of a bumpkin town and we're kind of slow. We're really not. We're the 3rd largest department in the county. We're the 3rd largest community in the county. We're the 3rd busiest. And if you take away the big 5, this is a bumpkin county. But us 5 make it a busy county, since we handle almost 50% of the workload for the county. Now, I know the other 34 police departments aren't going to like that I said that. I didn't say they were bad police departments. I just said that the top 5 handle the bulk of the workload, and we do a great job at keeping the lower bucks safe and secure. So if the board has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Anything?
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate creating that picture for us and sharing with us, all that you do. appreciate all the work that your officers do and our officers do. I don't think, as a township, we would be as safe and comfortable and enjoying this township if it wasn't for our police department. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Parks and Rec.
Good evening. So for the Parks and Recreation Department's department report, I structured it to go over with the board some of our core functions, just provide you an update of where we're at so far in the year. So we're going to go over programming, our capital improvement projects scheduled for this year, some upcoming events, and just some updates from the boards and commissions that we're liaison to from the Parks and Recreation Department. So to start out with, we're going to go over where we're at with programming so far this year. If you're able to go to the next slide. So here are just a couple pictures of some of the programs we do in the community. First one being our summer rec program, which is very popular. See about 450 children from the ages of 6 to 13 sign up for that program every year. It takes place at the Middletown Community Park, the Middletown Senior Center on Trenton Road, and Court Creek Park. On the right is just an example of one of our exercise programs. Our adult exercise classes are pretty popular. This is one that's held at the Senior Center main hall. It's our Zumba program. Nick, if you could move to the next slide for me. And then the two programs here, one on the left is our Summer Rec Basketball League, which sees about 250 kids signed up from the ages of 8 to 17 for a 6-week basketball league. And on the right is a picture of an event from our Middletown Pickleball Club, which is a program that has between 350 and 400 players signed up. It's a fee that we charge that allows for access to an organized play system that we have a volunteer committee that does a great job organizing all of our pickleball activities in the community. So just a couple of things I wanted to go over as related to programming. As of today, the Recreation Department's brought in about $220,000 towards our revenue goals for the year. This is majority from program registrations from the first of the year till now. Typically in January, by the end of the month, we'd be somewhere in the 50 to 60% range of that goal, due to a bulk of the registrations from our summer rec program coming in at this time of year, because we run a 10% discount for January for residents. And then just another programming note, we have a new initiative that we're starting as a pricing structure with some of our programs we're referring to as early registration savings. So for residents, for certain programs, if they sign up before prior to 7 days before the program's starting, they would receive a discount towards their registration fee. We instituted this to help encourage early registrations and try and cut down on having to cancel any programs that we offer. We try to avoid that as much as possible. So this is just another measure to try and improve on those numbers for cancellations. You can go to the next slide. So I'll briefly go over our plan for capital maintenance projects for the year. Right now we have 8 projects that we're planning for 2026. They include the Middletown Community Center's ADA bathroom improvement, the Twin Oaks park safety netting for the softball and baseball fields, which you see in a picture on the slide here. Security cameras at Community Park, Detective Christopher Jones Memorial Park playground upgrade, that's the current playground at Jones on the left that we're looking to upgrade. Simmons Park tennis courts, which on the next slide, they'll see a picture of the major crack going through the middle of them. Some facility improvements at our rec facilities, which for the picture that you see there is of the senior center. That would be for the bathroom project. And then the Middletown Country Club feasibility study is one that we're working in conjunction with administration on. So for these projects, they're all currently in the initiation or design phase, I would say. Right now, the ADA bathroom project and the netting project, Twin Oaks, will have to go out to bid, so we're going to start putting specs together for that to get that process started. The camera project is an ongoing project we've been working on up at Community Park for park security. So this is sort of the final phase to implement 7 to 8 new cameras in the park to complete that project. The Jones Playground project, we're working with a couple of the CoStar's playground providers we know to get some design ideas, and once we finalize that and decide on a vendor, the goal would be to have that ordered it in process by the end of this quarter so that we can look towards an install like late summer, fall, sort of like we had for the Lions Park playground. For the Simmons Park tennis court, we're in the design phase applying for a grant through the United States Tennis Association. We have an opportunity to potentially save 40 to 50% of the cost of that project, which is about $350,000 through this grant program. So right now we're working with a CoStarz vendor who partners with USTA to provide the design specs for the tennis courts and go through their process. It's a pretty quick turnaround. They're telling us about 5 to 6 weeks we'd have an answer on that. So we're trying to get all that information together with the vendor to then hopefully hear something by the end of February so we can move forward and know what we're working with as far as funding goes. The facility improvement portion of the budget that we're looking at, we have earmarked for AC repair at the barn for 2 handlers that are at the end of their useful life. For the Middletown Country Club feasibility study, we're still in the initiation phase, sort of figuring out what direction we want to go in with that. So we'll more of an updated future meeting. And while we're on the subject of just park improvements, I just want to note that we are working with a company in Bristol called QSP for the new sign for the Supervisor and Payne Memorial Park. We're hoping to have those signs in by the early February at the latest, and then we can start discussing, dedication and everything with that. Just a couple notes on our upcoming events. This is a picture from our Teen Talent Show last year at the Oxford Valley Mall. This year's event is scheduled to take place Saturday, January 24th from 4 to 6 p.m. We host that at the Sears Court in the mall there, so if you are interested in joining us, that'll be held that Saturday. We're all still looking for anyone interested in participating as well, so if you know anyone who wants to be a part of it, let us know. Our community cleanup day is scheduled for Saturday, April 11th, which is our annual park cleanup event that we've been doing for the past couple of years. Scheduled from 9 to 11 a.m. We organize cleanups at a few of the parks in the area, our Juniper Hill Greenbelt, Forsythia Crossing Park, the Snowball Gates Greenbelt, and the Cobalt Ridge Quincy Hollow Greenbelt are the ones we have scheduled now. We also, any groups in the community that want to organize in their neighborhood or another park, we're open to that as well, and we work with groups to set that up. Registration to volunteer can be found at our website if you're interested in signing up for that. And our Earth Day event is scheduled for Saturday, April 25th from 11 to 2. We're in the initial planning for that, so we'll have more information on that as well. And then finally, I just wanted to note from an update from one of our boards that we work with, the Environmental Advisory Council. At our last meeting in December is pursuing a couple new initiatives for this year, one of which is an invasive species cleanup day, which we would be looking to plan for the fall of 2026. This was brought up just, if you're in the community, you're looking in some of the parks, you'll notice a lot of vines, pricker bushes, things like that growing on the streamlines. And the AAC wants to try and organize an education event where they'll provide information about what to look out for, what sort of species are invasive, how you were able to get rid of them. And then after going over that information, take the volunteers out and actually apply that knowledge to removing some of them in our parkland. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to have, be in discussions with them throughout the year. They're also looking to rehab the butterfly and rain garden at our Veterans Memorial Park, which is located next to the Public Works Building. And they also are looking to do an analysis of which areas in our park system we may be able to naturalize and cut down on some mowing throughout the community to be a little bit more environmentally friendly. So just want to pass that update along as well. So that concludes our presentation for our department. Do you have any questions for Parks and Recreation?
I'll just quickly, no questions, but I just want to thank you and the rest of your department for everything that you guys do. I think a lot of times Parks and Rec doesn't get all the credit that they deserve. I think you guys really breathe a sense of a community into Middletown with all the events you host and stuff like that, and I'm very appreciative for it. I am biased. I was a camp counselor with you guys. It was my first job out of college, but since then I've been diehard Parks and Rec here in Middletown, and I'm very appreciative we have such a dedicated staff here, and I look forward to attending a lot of the events that you guys are putting together in 2026.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thanks for going after grant funding for the Simmons tennis court. I know that was one that I had on my list of items that were really large in the budget. So happy to know that we're trying to get grant money so that we can get that done.
Absolutely.
Just want to say thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Next, we have Human Resources Department.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm new here. We're 60 days in. Still trying to unpack a lot. But preliminarily, what the Human Resource Department has been working on since especially the budget's been approved is the hiring of some new equipment operators in the Public Works Department. We are currently accepting applications for that position. That application deadline is Thursday evening at 5 p.m. So if you know anyone that's interested in applying, please send them our way. I would also like to congratulate Parks and Recreation. Patrick kind of breezed over the fact that their teen talent show won an award. I want to say it was this past year. Yeah, at the PRPS conference, which is really cool. I live in Abington. I am very much in tune with the Parks and Rec Department. And my neighbors, Upper Dublin. I love seeing all the different programs. I think it's really cool that they received that award, and I'm super proud of them for that. In line with that, Patrick, who is the assistant director, did receive his Certified Parks and Recreation Executive certification in the last month. This certification requires you to have the education background in Parks and Recreation, the years of service within the department, and then apply and take the exam to really show your knowledge and abilities in the field. And it's a terrific accomplishment. So we expect great things from you, Patrick, just saying. And then Nicole Tenner, who is our program specialist in Parks and Recreation, also received her Parks and Recreation professional certification, which is the first step before you receive that executive certification. So just wanted to congratulate both of them on that. And finally, we have two very long-time employees retiring at the end of the month. Rita Wilson in the Parks and Recreation Department, who has been here for 38 years, and Mr. Whitaker, who is in our Public Works Department, who will be retiring after 45 years as an outstanding commitment to the township. And I applaud them for their years of service. Does anyone have any questions?
I just say after 60 days, what's on your radar? What do you want to get done in the next quarter?
Oh my gosh, I just said this the other day. I have so many things that I want to get done, and I feel like I'm not moving through them fast enough. We need to update our personnel handbook. I want to work on training both internally for the staff as a whole, and then individually towards their goals. So there's a lot to unpack. An evaluation process for employees, bringing back the, and I keep saying and I'm really sorry, the safety committee. I was the chair of our safety committee in Abington. I look forward to bringing that back to life, meeting monthly so that we can make sure that we're doing the best in the township for our employees.
Job descriptions.
Updating all of our job descriptions. There's a lot that I'm trying to move quickly to get done, but at the same time, take my time and do a good job.
Thank you. It sounds like you're going to be very, very busy.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks. Next up, we have engineering.
Last but not least, right?
Save the exciting one for last. Here we go. Good evening, board. What we want to do for just the initial one here is just to give a little bit of a background, what we do with all of the different departments in the township. Really, it's something where, as the consultant engineer for the township, we're working with just about every department, from Public Works to Parks and Rec, obviously with township staff. As the role of township engineer, we're working obviously towards the goals of the board. We are setting up meetings with the public, working with the residents for different projects that are in the neighborhoods to make sure that their concerns are heard, incorporate in the projects that are being done by the township. And just a couple of kind of photos from some things over the last year or so. Obviously, we're here at the meetings with you here at the board. We're here at the Planning Commission meetings, the EAC meetings as well, to provide support for all those public meetings that we have. We have meetings with the neighborhoods and the public for different projects that are going to be rolled out. You can see one that we had for the Gables Phase 2 project there, as well as the stormwater program as that was being reviewed last year. So we try to engage with the public as much as we can, with residents and really the larger area, so everyone's aware of these projects when they're going from the design phase, which is more kind of behind the scenes, to when we were able to interact with them and bring it to construction in different neighborhoods. So wanted to include as many before and after shots as we could, just to put some pictures to the kind of boring engineering stuff that some folks don't want to get into the numbers for. But when it comes to fruition, it's really a lot of hard work. It's a lot of investment by the township. The capital projects that are outlined in the budget really is our guiding document for what kind of projects the township wants to try to accomplish in the upcoming year. So on the upper portion there, you see the kind of before, during, and after pictures for the salt barn at Public Works, which also included other upgrades to the winter operations. On the left there, if you remember, that was the old one with kind of the bulldozer feeling a little shame in there, just able to fit in there. Really wasn't adequate for the needs of the township and the township of this size to have the operations for Public Works to do what they need to do during those kinds of storms. So the middle shows some of that ongoing construction when they were building the structure. On the right there is the finished product, really something that's much more appropriate and to the needs of the township here. So it's a large investment by the board, by the township, but something that really improves the quality of life, especially during those winter storms for the residents. And obviously kudos to the Public Works, who are the folks that actually are doing the operations and the day-to-day for all those winter operations. On the bottom there, like I mentioned, all the different departments we work with, that's a photo of when the new pickleball courts were completed over at Firefighters Park. That was in collaboration with the Parks and Rec Department to improve those courts there, really reconstruct the entire court there, as well as some of the stormwater around the courts. On the stormwater side, obviously there's been a lot of conversation about the stormwater projects in Langhorne Gables over the last few years. Just some before and after photos of the improvements that are starting to be really realized with some of the work that's been done. On the upper row there, that's from the Phase 1 and the Fernwood Cypress Avenue area. You can see on the left there really wasn't anywhere for the water to go at all. To the right, it's the same yard with the stormwater storm drains, as well as the underground piping that you can see now does not have those issues for the residents, especially in that portion there. On the bottom, this is just a couple weeks ago. On the left was the old condition of that swale that never quite made it down to the culvert, caused property damage really along the way on both sides. To the right, you can see really a vast improvement to allow the water to have more of a streamline to where it needs to go and avoid it backing up to where it then affects the properties instead of getting out to the streams and out of the neighborhood. So we'll continue to have before and after photos for all these projects that the board's investing in and the township's working on, just to show where that effort's going and really the improvements that are being made. Outside the capital work, we're also involved with the site planning reviews, not only for land developments, but also for grading permits. And as much as it's a step for folks to take to get their plans reviewed and approved, it's really for safety for not only themselves, but also their neighbors to make sure all the ordinances are met. So just a couple of examples where that is important. On the left there, a seepage bed, as a lot of folks know, those are required for stormwater management. That's what it looks like when one's actually being put in the ground. There's stone and piping that goes and then covered and becomes underneath the lawn there. But that is where the water is going to be managed rather than just flowing off to the neighboring property. So we are out there inspecting the work, make sure it's being built per the approved plans. In the middle there, if some of you recall Bluebell Avenue, there was a grading permit for a new home. Part of that was that Bluebell was not adequately wide enough for emergency vehicles to get all the way to the residents towards the back. So as the township engineer, we represent the residents and their best interest when these plans are submitted. We work with building and zoning closely to make sure that if there's other improvements that need to be made, a developer or a grading application has to account for those. So this is the just about finished product, but it's a wider Bluebell Avenue, now allows fire trucks and EMS to get all the way down, turn around and get back, which improves how folks get in and out of that road on a daily basis. On the right there, that's more of a larger land development. That's one actively in construction. We'll be out there making sure it's being constructed the right way, making sure they're adhering to all the requirements that the board approves, as well as being put together in a way that's going to be a good finished product for folks that move into the township. So they're putting in some granite curbing there. There's a dozer dumping some dirt on a pipe. You know, that's pretty exciting stuff right there. If you drive by, you'll see him actively working, and you know, once in a while you'll see our guy in the RVE vest making sure that everything's being done the right way. Currently in progress, these are the jobs that are on the capital side that are actively in progress out in the field. Gables Phase 2 is continuing. There's a shot of some new pipe work going in right at Linden Avenue, and that's all new stormwater in that neighborhood. In the middle there, the pipelining operations, we've talked about it a bit, but the pictures, I think, help explain it a lot better. On the left there, that's basically what it looks like. It's the plastic membrane liner that goes into the pipe. They heat it up, expand it, and you pretty much get a close to new condition of the interior of the pipe. And on the right is an example of why that's important as compared to digging it all up. And you can see that pipe that runs along at the Tina Drive location. It would go under fencing, sheds, all kinds of things that folks have kind of on their property there. So we wanted to show that if it's a viable option, the lining is really a good approach. And it's also, on average, less expensive than digging everything up and having to put it all back together, and less disturbing to the residents as well. On the right there, just the kind of reminder, that last piece from last year's ADA ramp program in Juniper Hill neighborhood. The ramps are all done. You can see the pedestrian bridge in Juniper Hill there, kind of in the back left of that photo. The last piece is our work with the Department of Public Works to make an accessible connection so folks can take that ramp that's shown there and be able to have ADA accessibility up to the pedestrian bridge and across the other neighborhood. Currently, it's really a steep decline down from the bridge there. It also declines like straight into the road. So we're looking to really improve that, and that's something we're doing internally as a township with Public Works to complete that work. For looking ahead this year, just what's slated in the budget and also work that we're doing with all the departments and staff. We have our road program that you'll see coming up. That is approximately 9 miles of paving, which is very exciting. That has that robust road program in the budget this year. We have our annual ADA ramp program. We'll continue to have the accessibility improved there. And I will mention for ADA ramps, they get a lot of bad talk sometimes when some of the meetings, because they are not the cheapest thing to construct, obviously. A lot of concrete work, kind of specialized work. However, in addition to having it accessible for folks that are either in wheelchairs and those types of situations, any kind of folks that have trouble getting up curbs. I know from when my kids were young, just having them in a stroller, it's nice to have accessibility. So there's a lot of situations where it really improves just the quality of life for the folks in that neighborhood or folks that might be visiting the neighborhoods. Not to mention it's federally regulated to improve when we do these projects. On the stormwater end, we have our a few stormwater projects there slated for this year. We talked about Reeds Avenue a little earlier. That's definitely one we're hoping to have constructed this year. Hillside Avenue drainage, another street that has flooding issues, we're looking to have moved to a project that'll be constructed. And our annual MS4 permitting program that we do that really is how all of our streams and waterways connect and how we try to improve the quality and the stormwater management throughout the township. The last part I'll mention is just the work that we do this year, planning for years coming up. So that's work that we collaborate with staff, other departments. Some of the stormwater jobs, we have Richardson Avenue as a drainage project. Some photos there of kind of areas that have stagnant water that we're looking to get moving and improve areas for those residents. The stream bank restoration projects, when you hear about those, I wanted to just include a photo of an example of one of what kind of an end product looks like for improving just how much the stream can now flow more naturally and less obstructed, which not only helps with the water quality, but also during big storms, just getting all those obstructions out that cause flooding issues. And then just in general, our continued support, like I mentioned, for all the different departments that the township has. Grant opportunities, we always add to any kind of narratives or engineering estimates that can help get grant applications more favorable for gaining those grant funding opportunities for the township. And looking forward to continued support of the board and for the township residents going forward. So with that, happy to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate that. That was a detailed report.
You're welcome.
Okay, so thanks to the brave department heads who volunteered to be the odd month and to go first to kick off this process for the rest of the year. So you'll hear from the other 5 departments you didn't hear from in February. So of course that'll be building and zoning, public works, finance, IT, and then the fire department. So super fun. They all have written reports, like I said, that are linked in the agenda. So I encourage both the board and the public to review those. Lots of great information. And as we get into a rhythm, these will be shorter. So the longer reports because there's a lot to cover, which is why we're going to do this every month. So thank you to the board and thanks to the team.
Our next agenda item is public comment. Any public comments? Oh, we did? We did agenda. Okay. Other business? Mr. Kiesler?
Nothing else to add. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Valla?
Yes, thank you. Just one quick item. It would have been part of the manager's office update, but it is update as of today. I'm happy to share that PennDOT and their contractor reporting that the Langhorne-Yardley Road Improvement Project is slated for completion by the end of May. So we'll certainly keep the community posted if there is a change to that, but they are looking at that as a final completion date. So we're very excited to see that project come to completion.
That's great news. Okay. Mr. Esposito?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to report that the board did hold an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel matters.
Thank you. Mr. Ratliff?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gaylor? Gallardo?
Thank you.
Sorry.
Gallardo, I've been called worse. I want to congratulate you on your first meeting as a chair. You did great. Just want to say that. And kind of just wanted to speak on one other thing briefly, if I could. On December 23rd, when the Middletown Township Fire Department, EMS, and police executed a coordinated and rapid mutual aid response to support operations at the Bristol Health and Rehab Center explosion. All Middletown Township fire companies responded and actively assisted with evacuations, fire suppressions, and rescue efforts as a part of the regional emergency response. While the units were committed at the scene, we had 2 Middletown Township fire stations staffed with volunteer duty crews to maintain full emergency coverage throughout the township until all the equipment was released in Bristol. Middletown Township police officers also supported the incident by securing perimeter and managing scene safety. Middletown Township's emergency services and first responders are vital to the safety and well-being of our community. They stand ready 24/7 to protect the lives, property, and provide critical assistance when our residents need it most. I just wanted to take a minute and kind of thank you guys for being there and being in that. It was national, and it was a great response.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Kizak?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Layton?
Just very quickly, I want to thank all the department heads and, of course, our township manager, Eden Ratliff, for putting together these reports. I thought that the transparency that we saw leading up to the budget was something that was unprecedented, and I think that that's, something that we should see more going forward. And I'm really happy to see that we're not only meeting that level of transparency, but trying to exceed it. And I'm glad that the public is going to be better informed about our government. And I'm just very appreciative of all the time you guys put into putting these together for us.
Ms. Kane?
Nothing further.
I just want to say thank you again to everybody. Thank you for the township staff, all of the departments. I thank fellow Board of Supervisors. Our township would not be as great as it is without all of you. And with that, I would like to take a motion for adjournment.
Second.
We are adjourned.